and welcome everyone to this meeting of the Growth Scrutiny Committee. I'm Councillor Sam French and I am the chairman of this committee. Vice Chairman Councillor Ruben Robinson is also present. The audio-visual feed of this formal public meeting is being broadcast live via the County Council's website, so all comments to be raised today will remain accessible online. There's no fire drill planned for this morning. In the event of a fire alarm sounding, please leave the chamber, exit the building through the reception and assemble at the front car park. Please have any mobiles, laptops and iPads on silent mode. The hearing loop is now activated. Requests to speak will be collated by the top table. Please indicate early when you wish to speak. We will now move on to the formal agenda. First of all, apologies for absence.
None received.
Thank you. Item 2, declaration of members' interest. Do any members have declarations to declare? Doesn't appear so. We'll move on to item 3. Minutes of the previous meeting held on June 23rd, 2026. This item is to approve and sign the minutes of the meeting as a correct and accurate record of the previous meeting. Please turn to pages 5 to 16 of the agenda pack. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Baxter, did you want to comment?
Yes, I've sent you and one of the clerks 2 amendments. I understand you've replied this morning to pick up those amendments. For clarity, the amendments were, first of all, I did ask about the £2 million Grantham High Street funding. I asked the question last meeting and you said that you didn't have the information available and that you would come back after the meeting. Since the meeting, I was in touch with the Chief Executive of the Council and have been sent a copy of the audit report into what actually happened with the £2 million that was allocated under devolution for Grantham. That audit report, I don't know whether it should be presented here. I think it should, but also it should have been presented yesterday to the audit committee. It wasn't. It is being delayed for as long as possible, swept under the carpet, because it is embarrassing to the council. And I would like you, Chair, to ask that audit report is published as soon as possible, please. The second issue was about Councillor Bailey Robinson. We were told that there was no conflict between his role as an executive councillor for executive support councillor, for Councillor Condell, is that right? And because there was no overlap between his role as an executive support councillor and that portfolio and this meeting. However, the executive support councillor role does include performance, and we did have an item on the previous agenda about performance, and Councillor Robinson, having been advised, presumably, did take part in that conversation. So could I have some clarity over whether Councillor Robinson is able, if it's appropriate for Councillor Bailey Robinson to comment on issues within his portfolio? Thank you. And also, could you read out the proposed changes to the minutes, which I'm happy to propose as amendments?
Yeah, would you like to read those changes?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the proposed changes that have been highlighted by Councillor Baxter include to add some members queried if Councillor Bailey Robinson had an interest to declare as in his position as Executive Support Councillor. That would be under the Declaration of Interest. And a second point on progress on the Grantham High Street Devolution Fund. That was omitted in error from the minutes, so we're happy to insert some wording on that.
Thank you. I think that's fair.
Thank you for correcting the minutes. Could you please give us some clarification over the 2 issues? Firstly, will you ask the Chief Executive for the audit report on the £2 million investment fund to be published at the earliest opportunity? And secondly, could you clarify whether or not Councillor Bailey Robinson is able, in future meetings, not in this one, I don't think it's on the agenda, but in future meetings, to comment on issues of performance?
Okay, thank you. Michelle Grady, would you like to comment?
Yeah, just on the first matter of the Grantham audit report. So the question was asked at Audit Committee yesterday about when the report would be published. Claire Tomlin, the head of internal audit, responded and basically said, as our normal business, the head of internal audit report, progress report, would be presented to the September committee, and the report would be published as part of that. So no intention to hide anything under the carpet. The chief exec has confirmed to me that that was the progress route that was agreed at the group leaders. So with the leaders, that was the route that was agreed with the chief exec for the audit report. So we'll be part of the Grantham, will be part of the head of internal audit update report for September audit committee, which was agreed at audit committee yesterday.
Thank you.
So, Chair, if there's nothing to hide, why not publish it today?
Michelle?
That was the agreement with the chief exec, that it would be published at audit committee with the update report from the head of internal audit, so any questions about the report could be answered at the appropriate time at the meeting.
Thank you. And the other issue with Councillor Bailey Robertson, would that be a monitoring officer or a DEMS issue?
Councillor Robinson.
It's up to...
I believe he's received advice from the head of DEM services.
well, Councillor Robinson has received advice from DEMS, head of DEMS services, so it's up to Councillor Robinson to make that decision. And I think we've kind of gone a bit off topic from the accuracy of the minutes now, so I would like to vote on the proposal as suggested with those amendments. So, as you're the proposer, do I have a seconder?
I'm not
Councillor?
Chair, I'm not proposing.
Okay, I'll propose it then. Councillor Day seconded, and all in favour? Those against? Abstentions? It's carried. Thank you. On to announcements by Chairman, Executive Councillors and Lead Officers. From me, members may wish to note that in line with communication circulated since the last meeting, a State of the County workshop has been organised for the 2nd of September in the afternoon at 2 o'clock. If you have not responded to your calendar invite, please do so at your earliest convenience. Please note this is an in-person workshop. I would like to note that the Vice Chairman and one committee member recently attended the Greater Lincolnshire Careers Hub end-of-year event and the Lincolnshire Institute of Technology STEM Challenge Final as well. The event provided an excellent opportunity to see firsthand the positive impact of partnership working between schools, colleges, employers and local organisations in preparing young people for future employment. Members heard directly from students who had taken part in the employer-led projects, work experience placement and STEM activities, many of whom spoke about the confidence, skills and aspirations they gained through these opportunities. Particularly encouraging was the opportunity to witness the creativity and talent of the young people across Lincolnshire, as well as the vital contribution made by local businesses in supporting skills development and workforce readiness. As this committee continues its interest in skills, employability and economic growth, I would encourage members to proactively engage with and champion the work of Careers Hub where possible. Do we have any executive councillor announcements? Nope. Senior officer announcements? Nope. So we will continue to item 5, the pre-decision scrutiny report for the gas framework contract reprocurement. This pre-decision scrutiny report to the executive can be found on pages 17 to 42 of the agenda pack. The report invites the Growth Scrutiny Committee to consider a report on the gas framework contract reprocurement, which is being presented to the executive for a decision on the 1st of September 2026. All comments from the committee will be reported to the executive as part of their consideration of this item. The actions required are: the report invites the committee to consider and scrutinise the report and recommendations to the executive. The report will be presented by Marie Marriott, Head of Facilities and Workspace Management, not Mary. Over to you, Marie.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. So this report considers the procurement of mains gas and recommends the ESPO energy framework route for the next 4 years, from April 2027 through to March 2031. It has been presented to Executive for a decision in September. The contractual value is between 3 and 3.5 million, around £800,000 per year. That is variable as it is driven by consumption, which will be driven by external matters such as weather and prevailing conditions. This report returns to the committee and now includes further revisions following a previous report presented to Growth Scrutiny on the 23rd of June. The additional inclusions are additional benchmarking of alternative public buying organisation frameworks, the addition of an appendix containing benchmarking and market analysis, an expanded commentary with regards to the management fees and the services provided through the ESPO framework, additional information regarding local government reorganisation and the flexibility afforded within the contract towards that, further detail regarding social value opportunities and supplier commitments, additional market context, risk considerations and justification for the recommendation for the procurement route, detail around the flexibility with regards to the opportunities to include and exclude properties on a flexible basis. And this element is part of the wider ESPO frameworks in operation within the council, which bring a combined benefit. However, they are being kept intentionally separate, and we are focusing on the gas contract to ensure that the benchmarking is not unduly influenced. A key point to note is that the recommendation would be the continuation of a long, well-established, well-performing approach. ESPO has supported Lincolnshire County Council effectively for over 25 years, providing a fully managed service, access to specialist expertise, and the benefit of aggregated public sector buy-in. The energy market remains highly volatile, and ESPO's framework purchase and advanced strategy helps us to manage risk, improve budget certainty, and importantly, this option avoids transition risk, additional internal resource pressures and unnecessary costs to the council. The alternative options have been fully considered, but they either introduce further risk, reduce transparency, or do not offer a clear financial or operational benefit. Overall, the recommendation provides the best balance of cost control, risk management and service quality, ensuring the continuity of our supply for the estate. Schools are excluded from this paper. 55% of our schools within Lincolnshire do subscribe to ESPO, however they do so directly and act independently. It should be also noted that the council's electricity procurement is managed separately under a different contractual arrangement with ESPO, which is not due to expire until September 2028, therefore is outside the scope of this decision. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Marie. Do we have any speakers?
Councillor Daesh, please.
Thank you for the revised. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the revised details. Because of LGR, is there any chance that we could make this, instead of a 4-year contract, a 3-year contract?
Thank you. So when working with ESPO, they are typically on 4-year arrangements. That's what we have access to through the framework. However, what we are able to do as a result of LGR is the flexibilities that Marie explained. So the ability to add in and remove properties from the portfolios. In terms of the LGR position and protection, essentially we are going into, or we're proposing and recommending to go into an agreement that all of the districts are currently part of as well. So in terms of that aggregation, disaggregation role that we need to play through the contracting and procurement arrangements, it does lead us to working with one supplier to essentially make that if you like, transfer and innovation and for vesting day easier to manage than some of the other areas that we're looking at and considering. Ultimately, our job between now and vesting day is to deliver to safe and legal authorities, and therefore that's been considered in this paper, and this is why the recommendation is to go down the route of the ESPO framework for the full term, because those flexibilities allow us to make some of those adjustments as required.
Thank you, Laura. Does that answer your question?
Not really. What I'm suggesting is that because of LGR, we can actually, negotiate perhaps 3 years rather than 4, and then we're not committed, and then it starts to come in line with the existing electric system that you've got, the policy for that.
So, as explained, the ESPO framework does work on a 4-year agreement. However, we do have the flexibilities post vesting day to be able to add and remove properties, which would allow us to deal with those circumstances, as you've explained. Longer term, obviously, it will be up to the new authorities to decide how they want to deal with utilities and whether that's on an individual basis or collectively. So that will be something for the new authorities to decide at the relevant time. However, our recommendation remains that going down the route of working with ESPO and agreeing a 4-year contract is the best value. It is the way to determine and deliver best value for the authority.
Councillor Condell, please.
Given what you've said there, should we have a break clause in the contract or suggest having a break clause in the contract so as when LGR comes through we can look at this again with that authority?
So the majority of public buy-in contracts do include those types of break clauses. We, as the buyer, have power over when we can decide to leave contracts, and that doesn't need to be for cause. It can be for any particular circumstance and particular reason. These contracts are built on model form contracts from central government, which does include those clauses within them. So again, there's some of the flexibilities that we are able to explore, or say we, the new authorities, will be able to explore when we do get to that time.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks for that clarity.
Councillor Baxter, please.
Thank you. In the minutes of the previous meeting, members were reminded that members asked how they could be assured that the ESPO framework represented best value given the report's lack of financial detail. You've added in, I think I'm looking in the right place, that the ESPO management fee is approximately £23,300 per annum. So what's the next alternative? So with the other PBOs, would they be higher, lower, or the same? The second question is about the detail about the PBOs. We've got to. So for full transparency, I've been approached by Laser, which is a PBO, who, after the last meeting, were surprised at the process that we're having. I understand that Laser, which is Local Authority South East Region, I think, have approached other people within the council, including Marie Marriott. They haven't had a reply or a conversation, as far as I know, as far as they know. Within the paragraph on page 38, which talks about the details of the framework, Laser is not even recognised as a purchasing organisation. They're down as a supplier, which to me indicates a fundamental misunderstanding of the difference between a PBO and a supplier, which I find quite troubling. On the page over the page on the graph, we've got a comparison benchmarking graph where we're comparing a county council procurement exercise with all our buildings with procurement for housing, which I would have thought was mostly housing, which is not the same thing. And then we've got the energy consortium, which I understand is mostly education, which again is not the same thing. So we're not comparing apples and pears. So we haven't got a comparison of costs of the alternative PBOs. I'd like you to tell us which PBOs you have actually spoken to about the alternative provisions, and I'd like you to explain the mistakes, certainly about what is a PBO and what is not. I'm not voting for this because the word that was used earlier on, and I understand it, is easier. So it's easier to use ESPO, undoubtedly easier, not cheaper, but easier. Councillor Daesh asked, can we have a 3-year rather than the 4-year contract? Well, it's easier for ESPO to have a 4-year contract than a 3-year contract. Certainly, that's a case of putting the cart before the horse. We're supposed to be the customer. If we ask for a 3-year contract, then they should be trying to find a way to meet our needs, not saying, no, sorry, we only do 4 years. And yeah, so this whole exercise, as I said last time round, is about being easier. There's no financial transparency in it, and yeah, I'm not voting for it.
Thank you. Who would like to answer that? Laura?
Yep, sure. Thanks, Councillor Baxter. So just in terms of the comparison, so you'll see on page 38, those are the PBOs that we have done that analysis with. I'd just like to point out best value isn't just about price. There are various factors included within that. And as Marie covered off that, and as the benchmarking analysis covers off, that includes cost, it includes the service provisions, it includes governance, it includes operational resilience, organisational flexibility, as we've talked about, and also being able to manage the market risk. So it isn't just about price when we consider all of this together. I think...
Well, no, there are no numbers in this. You've said that you've put in financial information. There are no numbers.
So to be able to provide the information that we provided to assure the scrutiny panel, we have gone away and done that work. Our job as officers is to undertake that analysis. We have skilled and experienced officers that do understand the difference between a purchasing organisation and a supplier, who have been able to provide the analysis, to provide the assurance to the committee that the recommendation is ESPO. That's not saying it is the easiest route. A full options appraisal and a full commercial analysis has been completed prior to the previous committee, and then in between to answer additional questions. So that work has been done, and that has led to this being the recommendation. It isn't about whatever is easiest, and essentially we have gone down the route of looking at what determines best value for the organisation. You have identified that the management fee is included within the paper. Not every public buying organisation works in that way, so not every public buying organisation will include a standardised management fee as ESPO do. They include their costs presented in a different way, and that is the analysis that we've done in the background to be able to provide the assurance to the committee that the recommendation is to continue with ESPO as we've outlined.
Do you want to come back?
Councillor Baxter.
Yes, please. So this, the technical experts that have done this on our behalf, as I've mentioned on page 38, they can't even tell the difference between a supplier and a purchasing organisation. Laser is a purchasing organisation, not a supplier. It's in the wrong column. So that undermines my confidence in the experts. But also, yeah, thank you very much for getting the experts to do this for us. But again, like last time, you're just saying, here it is, trust us. If there are nuances in the way that other PBOs present their information or present their costs or so on, then I don't understand why we can't be allowed to see what that is. I don't understand why we can't have something on papers saying £23,300, that's good value because look at these other ones. We're capable of understanding the difference between what's presented on confidential papers. The question that hasn't been asked is, what conversations have taken place directly between our procurement team, specialists, and any of the PBOs? What actual conversations and presentations have been received by any of these PBOs on 38?
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Laura, do you want to come in on
Yep. So each of the organisations that have been identified in that table were all contacted, and also they have online information that we're able to scrutinise and analyse as part of the process.
Sorry, define contacted.
So if you go onto the website of each of these purchasing organisations, there's contact information to find out more about that framework. So each of those were contacted to find out more about those frameworks for the purposes of developing the paper that came to the previous committee for that benchmarking analysis.
So I repeat the question, how many have actually been spoken to?
I think it's all the ones in the table. Is that
7 on
not
the
what-
table.
Yeah.
Spoken to? In human contact? A
So
telephone
it may have been
call?
via email rather than necessarily picking up a telephone, but they have all been contacted. Yes.
But it seems that very few have been spoken to, which would be useful to understand. If I was spending £3 million, I wouldn't send an email and hope for the best. I'd want to listen to what that supplier had got, and I'd want to understand what was being offered. And then when I went back to the people who are spending that money, I'd want to put some clear financial information in front of them.
So just in terms of what we are and aren't able to do underneath procurement regulations, we need to make sure that we have asked the same questions to all suppliers and all public buying organisations. Therefore, the most appropriate way for us to be able to do that from an audit point of view is to be able to write that down and see the responses that come back against that. Obviously, as you can imagine, having phone calls with people lead down different routes, and then being able to minute that accurately could lead us to having more questions at an audit point. So in terms of gathering information from the market, that is typically done through written purposes, and then if we do hold more broader engagement sessions, they can be minuted and managed in a different way, just so we're still able to meet the requirements of the various regulations that we do need to sit underneath when we're buying and spending public money.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter.
Okay, so how many broader engagement sessions took place?
So when we undertake a commercial options appraisal, we had the 5 options that we looked at. As we're now in the process of recommending to go down a framework route and use the ESPO framework particularly, we won't be going down the route of a pre-market engagement, because you typically do that as part of more of an open market, an open engagement. So where we are in terms of the process, we wouldn't go down the route of assessing the framework and potentially buying through a framework, whilst also going down the route of publishing notices around pre-market engagement, and then having those more in-depth discussions round a table with every buying organisation and every supplier in the country, because that essentially we've done that options appraisal up front, which has put forward that the recommendation should be ESPO and should be the framework route, and therefore we don't need to allocate the resource and officer time to go down the pre-market engagement route that you'd typically go down through more of an open competition commercial tool.
Thank you. I'll just quickly remind councillors to address questions through the chair, please, if possible. Did you have anything to come back on, Councillor Baxter?
Through you, Chair, we're being asked to choose a framework. This is appointing ESPO as the framework. I don't think that we've got sufficient information about the other available frameworks to make a decision, particularly on the cost of that framework. But I'll leave it there because I'm banging my head against the brick wall.
Thank you. Is it also worth mentioning the kind of wider ESPO framework, because it didn't come to attention last time, the £1 million rebate that ESPO as a whole brings, which kind of changes the picture of this contract a little bit. But obviously, we don't want to get too off topic. But
Yeah, happy to touch on it. So as you'll be aware, as one of the organisations that established ESPO, we do receive a rebate as part of that. That's dependent on the number of frameworks that are used by suppliers, and they essentially have a small fee that they pay back towards ESPO that covers all of ESPO's overheads, and then the remaining funding that pot essentially is then divvied up between the organisations that established ESPO. So we do receive a £1.2 million rebate per year associated with all of the ESPO frameworks, not just the gas framework, but that is something to consider in the mix, and was also considered as part of the commercial options appraisal, and understanding the value being driven and essentially the best value case that was put forward.
thank you.
So, sorry, can I ask a question regarding that? What other frameworks and services are in place from ESPO? Because obviously we're making a decision on this, but you just said something else which isn't in the paper is determined than your decision as well. So obviously we do gas and electricity through ESPO. What other services do we do through them as well?
So that was something we discussed about bringing back outside the meeting, just because it isn't material to this contract. So as much as the ESPO arrangements do benefit the organisation is something that we do consider. It is collectively a £1.2 million, and there are various frameworks that we are benefiting from ultimately. So the proportion that comes from the ESPO framework, comes from the gas framework, as much as it is something we have considered as part of the commercial options appraisal and the best value, it isn't material enough to sway us towards using this framework over another.
Are you suggesting if we didn't use the gas framework, they could potentially kick us out not using other frameworks and services as well, or is it completely separate?
It is completely separate. We have the choice to which ESPO frameworks we choose to use, which other public buying organisation frameworks we wish to use, and if we do wish to go to open market to speak to other suppliers as well.
Councillor Baxter, do you want to go back?
Yeah, we're getting... I know this is slightly off the gas contract, but since you brought up the £1 million, Chairman, if we get a £1.2 million rebate from ESPO each year, how much are we spending with ESPO each year?
Do you want to answer that, Michelle?
So that isn't a figure I have to hand at the moment, but it's a collective across the whole council, including our maintained schools. Lots of purchasing being done through those routes as well, but not something we have to hand at the moment. But
Yeah,
Chair, not even a ballpark figure, because 1.2
I'm not
million...
going to guess at figures when it's not pertinent to the decision, the scrutiny of this decision.
Chair, with respect, we're expected to guess at figures because we've got to guess whether or not £23,000 is a good figure or a bad figure.
Yeah, I know we're getting a bit off topic. I only brought that up because I spoke to Tom Catton after the meeting last time, and I think I can't remember what he said. It was about, it's not really an investment, it's like we own a share of somewhere close to 6-7 million. So you get the rebate and you also have equity, something along those lines. But I think we are getting off topic. So do we have any other speakers?
Councillor Dyer next, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you, Marie, not Mary, please I've got it right this week, this month, and Laura for the answers to your questions, and thank you for bringing this report back. I think it's much improved on what we received in June. And what's changed since June, Chairman, in my mind, is the very nature of this council existing. So, in 2 years' time, Lincolnshire County Council will be a matter of history. It will not exist. So what we're talking about now, from now until the vesting day, it's essentially business as usual whilst establishing new authorities and essentially winding down this authority. So from that context, Chairman, I think for any decision that we make now going forward should be with that in mind, because actually we're winding down. This will be no more. So with that in mind, I thank you for the report, and I think you have assured me in what you've said as well, that I think Marie or Laura, you mentioned it in one of your answers. Actually, what we're looking at now is aggregating and disaggregating services as we move forward. And as we move forward, we need to make sure that we can do that as easy as possible. Because I can imagine you and your colleagues have got a significant amount of tasks on your plates, you know, with LGR and what happens. And when it comes to a gas procurement contract for a council that won't exist in 2 years' time, we need to make sure that unpicking this is as simple and efficient as possible. So I do take the points that Councillor Baxter made. There aren't much mentioned in this report to costs, but what you have mentioned, and it's very clear within the report, ESPO, they're compliant, they're a stable organisation, it's low risk, they're broadly competitive, and it avoids those transition costs. So from that alone, Chairman, given that this council is now winding down, I think it's a sensible option that's being presented to this committee. So from that viewpoint, Chairman, I'm happy to support the recommendation that we go with ESPO from the answers that have been provided within the report. What I would just ask, Chairman, it's just the only question I have from the report is just the social value discussion. And I thank you. You've provided more information. I think you've probably provided as much as you can provide within the report. But actually, there are no specific commitments, targets, local benefits, carbon reduction outcomes, or measurable social value proposal. So it essentially says, we've considered social value as the law requires, and we'll look for opportunities where appropriate, rather than specific social value outcomes. Is that just the nature of this sort of report? Can we get any more detail on potential social value? I think there's some comment in the report that social value would adhere to to the values of ESPO and the energy organisation. Do we know what their values are? I'm just wondering, what benefit can we get out of that social value? But other than that, Chairman, for the reasons I've set out, I think we should approve it, and we should recommend to the executive to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer. Laura, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you. And we did go back to ESPO and have a conversation about this. So there is some work happening between ESPO and Total Energy as a supplier at the moment to establish a fund around social value that users of the framework can apply for. Essentially, the values that they're looking to work towards are around supporting net zero ambitions and reducing environmental impacts, promoting diversity, equality and inclusion, supporting disadvantaged and vulnerable communities, and enhancing education, skills development and opportunities for young people. So quite a few of those very much aligned to the council plan and where we're looking to direct our social value policy, which will be coming back to this committee in October, so we can, at that point, talk a bit more detail around how that framework and those commitments align to current contracts as well as newly established procurements.
All right, thank you. Is it Councillor Corey next?
Councillor Bowles next, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I will be very short after Councillor Dyer, because he's said most of what I was going to say, so I'm not going to repeat it. I completely agree with what Councillor Dyer said in terms of the contract, and thank officers for the additional information, and I'm happy to support it now that we've got that and what the future look like. Again, I did have a question on the social value. It's more for clarity, because I think I've confused myself rereading it several times. Within section 5, the social value information, it states that Total Energies have committed to establishing a social value investment fund through the framework, providing up to £10,000 per annum, blah, 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 up to a maximum of £40,000 over the 4-year contract. Is that, I'm just a little bit confused, is that £40,000 maximum, is that for the whole framework, or is that specifically related to Lincolnshire County Council, this contract? So there is a maximum of £40,000 available to this council, and I might have a follow-up depending on that.
Yeah, so we did ask that question, and the £10,000 per year is available to all participating customers. So it would be £40,000 for Lincolnshire over the term of the contract on the basis that we maximise that term.
Okay, thanks. That's great then. So I guess my follow-up question to that is, how will those decisions be made about where that's spent? How do people apply for that? How are local councillors made aware of how to apply for it so they can signpost people? And if possible, Chair, can I broaden that out? I don't know to which officer, but broaden that out a little bit across the council. As I said at the last committee meeting, we know very much about the social value of the highways contract, how we can get things in our area. How can I, as a local member, understand across a broad spectrum of this council's contracts where there is social value available, where I can know who to speak to about that, where to signpost local groups in my community to apply for some of these funds? A bit more broader, how can I get that knowledge across the council? Because at the minute, I don't feel like I have it other than the highways contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Lord, do you want to go first?
Yeah, thank you. So you'll be pleased to know that is a piece of work we are looking at the moment. And we have got a social value project on the go at the moment, and engaging with our highways colleagues around that best practice that they have in place, and how we might look to be able to replicate that type of model cross council. That is something on the forward work programme for this committee coming back in October, so we can discuss in more detail at that point. But the intention would be to look at replicating that highways type model as much as possible based on obviously capacity and priorities that we have got as an organisation. But yeah, absolutely, and considering how we include current contracts and current commitments within that as well is really important.
Perfect. While we're on social value, I wonder if I can ask a quick question regarding it. Obviously, I understand social value can be quite expensive, and I can understand why ESPO don't do as much social value as maybe other organisations. But the organisation in Kent, which is run by Kent County Council, which Councillor Baxter mentioned earlier, called Laser. Is it Laser or Lasser? L-A-S-E-R anyway. So Total Energies through ESPO is going to give £10,000 per year, which is the equivalent of £40,000 over 4 years in social value. Laser, which uses Total Energies as well, their suppliers have delivered over £150,000 per year. I can understand why, because they probably have more property. But in terms of Laser directly, they have reported community days, volunteer programmes, school workshops, charity funding, food bank donations, and more than £175,000 of combined supplier contributions in one reporting period, which I presume is a year. I presume ESPO don't do as much as this, because obviously that if ESPO were to, that would be less money coming back into this organisation. Is that correct? Oh, another thing as well, in terms of the Laser thing, and I think this is quite important to say as well, it's run directly by Kent County Council, and they employ 111 staff, which all live and work within the Kent area. Whilst ESPO have 346 staff, which are primarily based in Leicestershire. I think there's 2 people out of that staff member in Lincolnshire. So there could be a job situation there as well. So maybe looking at, in the future, when LGR does happen and we get a bigger portfolio of property, maybe bringing it potentially in-house, if that's a conversation which we're willing to have.
So just on the first question, I'm not able to provide a comparison of exact across the 2 organisations and the level of social value. As I mentioned, we did go back and ask about the specific social value questions to bring into this report and provide that additional detail. We will continue to work with ESPO and Total Energies once they do have that fund in place, and increase the reporting done on that, so we will be able to bring through the types of activities that sit underneath on that social value activity as well. I think just in relation to the second question, it will be for the future authorities to determine which model they wish to go with for their utilities, and therefore at that point commercial appraisal, commercial options appraisal will be completed by those authorities, and then those recommendations will come to the relevant scrutiny committees and decision makers. So at this point, I can't answer that question, unfortunately.
That's fine, thank you. Councillor Condell, please.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. Just want to double check. I know we said 55% of schools are using this, and is there any, well, first of all, is there any way of getting the other 35% to start using it? Secondly, do all existing district councils use ESPO? South Holland, South Kesteven, the rest of them?
So districts, yes, access ESPO. And do you want to do schools?
Yeah, so the option is available to all schools to join the ESPO framework. It would be up to the individual schools and part of their own decision making through their governors, because they hold their own budgets. So we can't encourage, but it is made available to them.
Why can't we encourage them to?
They're the decision makers about their own budget, so we can't do that. So, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Corey.
Thank you, Chairman. I understand Councillor Baxter's frustrations, but I do fully concur with Councillor Dyer's statement, and I'm happy to second. I think he proposed. I'm happy to second if Councillor Bowles hasn't already done so, and I also concur with Councillor Bowles' social value comments and Councillor Robinson's insight, which provoke further questions, and I'm sure Laura will bring solutions for future meetings. But ultimately, as you said, Laura, through you, Chairman, this is a matter for successor authorities. This is a much improved report. Thank you very much for that. And your Laura and Marie's verbal reports have given me much greater confidence in the process. So thank you to you directly. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson, do you want to jump in? Does an officer want to answer? No. It was just an appreciation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor.
No
Corey,
worries,
for
I was
that.
just putting my hand up. No, no, I just wanted to emphasise, yeah, that is pretty much a repeat of what I said last meeting. I think everybody's getting the same tune as what I said there. Just to answer Councillor Condell's question about the district councils, I had a further look. Yeah, the leadership of all of the district councils decided that, including the current leadership of South Kesteven, decided to use ESPO, interestingly. If you know any of them, then you can ask them why they approved it then and think different now. But yeah, no, I think everybody's in agreement now of what I said previously, yeah, I would agree that we need to stick with this until we can. And I'd take on Councillor Robinson's point about, I think we need to look further once LGR happens, and once it gets to that 2030 and our organisations are a bit more stable, we can have a look at those different options. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson.
Councillor Baxter, please.
Thank you. If Councillor Bailey Robinson is trying to have a go, then I'd remind him that this is a 4-year contract. I've not been leader of South Kesteven for 4 years yet. And if district councils have chosen it, then they've followed their own processes. They've got their own financial scrutiny process and so on. It might be that South Kesteven is going to make that decision within the next few months. And it will be based on facts and evidence, and the information will be available, I'm sure. On the schools issue, when you say 55% of schools, is that just LEA maintained schools, or is it schools including academies?
So it's available to all schools to join, so whether they're academies or whether they're voluntary funded or whether they're local authority maintained schools. That figure is for the maintained schools.
Sorry, the 55% is for the maintained, so it's 55% of maintained schools.
Yes, that's correct.
The academies are not within that calculation.
I think
No.
it's just available to them as what
It is
Marie's
available
saying,
to them.
if
It's
they want
available
it.
to them all if they'd like to participate in the scheme.
No, sorry, I'm trying to understand the statistic that's being given. We've got, let's say, 500 schools, of which 300 are academy schools. So the 55%, is it 55% of the ones which are maintained by us, or is it 55% of all schools, including academy schools?
So it's 55% of the LA maintained schools. We wouldn't have the information for the academy schools.
Thank you. That was a question I was trying to answer. Sorry if I didn't phrase it very well. So earlier on, we were given a lecture about the importance of following the Procurement Act and procurement legislation and so on, and that was a reason why we couldn't speak to some of the other PBOs and potential framework suppliers. Now, in this social value conversation, we're told that lots of conversations have happened with ESPO about potential social value and what they do and how they do it, and so on. So it seems we've had, Chair, a lengthy conversation about the ins and outs of it with ESPO that we haven't had with all the other suppliers, possibly any of the other suppliers. And that alone is why I'm not voting for this, because it's not a level playing field, it's not a fair process.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Did you have anything to comment?
Just to say, the social value questions that were responded to were all via email, so they were also auditable, and that was the reason why, and the reason given for putting everything in email to the other public buying organisations.
Thank you. Do we have any?
So, sorry, to follow up on
Councillor
that,
Baxter.
is Laura saying that the social value question was asked of all the other suppliers?
No, we have a current agreement with ESPO, and the current agreement with ESPO includes reference to social value. So we asked a question more specifically around what that current agreement social value includes.
Okay, so we know what ESPO think about social value. We don't know what anybody else says about social value. That's understood.
Thank you.
I'm just going to defend the officers here slightly, because reading the Constitution, which we agreed on the 23rd of May 25, it states that the Council is currently a member of the Eastern Shires Purchasing Organisation known as ESPO. Use of this purchasing consortium saves time and costs involved in tendering individual contracts. They can also provide support by undertaking competition on the Council's behalf. These services should be used wherever possible, and chief officers shall ensure that officers make appropriate use of ESPO. Now, does the wording, these services should be used wherever possible, give certain bias towards ESPO compared to the other competition? Because last month, we did ask for quotes, service options from other organisations, brokers and alternative procurement options, which I see are not in the paper, so we can make a proper comparison between the services. All this new paper seems to do is beef up ESPO even more rather than look at the alternatives. My question is, I don't understand why this has come into scrutiny if we're not getting the figures to scrutinise and pick anyway. It's almost as if this has been predetermined based off the Constitution. So I can understand why the officers have written it in this way. But to me, I think the wording of there, used wherever possible, it really does push the let's just use ESPO, whatever the case.
So the paper has got the 5 options that the benchmark analysis was undertaken on. So that commercial options appraisal was looked at fairly across those 5 different options. We do have, as you've identified in the Constitution, essentially a framework first approach, but that doesn't mean that we don't look at other options available to us, and that is what is included within the paper to provide that assurance that that piece of work has been done.
But what I'm saying is we are having to trust you, which is fair enough, but we are having to trust you with the decision without us saying, having all the figures on there. I just want to touch up on LGR. ESPO have confirmed that sites can be added or removed from the contract portfolio during the contract term without penalty. Now, Total Energies don't charge to add or take away supply from properties, so effectively this is just ESPO doing their job, is it not? Is it just what we're paying for? It seems to come across as a unique benefit to ESPO, when actually I think all the organisations would do that as well. It also says this provides flexibility to accommodate estate changes arising from local government reorganisation and other future changes to the council's estate, whilst retaining the benefits of a managed purchasing strategy. Now, in 2 years' time, or 2.5 years' time, obviously, this council will not exist, and therefore it will no longer be a member of ESPO, correct? How does this 4-year contract work? And if it is decided that the 2 new councils also join ESPO, even if it's for 2 years after LGR is set up, who makes this decision? Does it go back to scrutiny, whether those councils decide to join ESPO or not?
I think just to highlight, I don't think any of the organisations that are currently part of ESPO will exist post that day. So I think all of the different councils that are involved in ESPO are in the same position as us, and clearly that will need to be worked through the process. I think the other thing to mention in terms of social value and stuff, we do have member representation on the organisation, so I'm sure Councillor Catton's quite happy to raise anything, any questions we have back to ESPO in regards of that. I think just some of the ESPO first approach is mainly for if you are in a school and you need to buy a load of pens and paper, that's the preferred option for you to go to. Clearly where we have bigger procurements that involve a larger amount of money, we go through the same competitive process that we would normally go through, but considering the frameworks that are available to us that take out some of the time and resource and cost for going through some of those larger procurement routes. Hopefully that's helpful.
I did look on the ESPO website. I was putting pens and pencils in my basket and compared it to Amazon, and actually I managed to find it cheaper off Amazon, so I didn't really see the point in the organisation doing that. It says here that the expected ESPO member dividend has fallen from 16,000 to 6,910. Is that because gas prices have gone up since last month?
That might also be to do with usage, but which part of the paper are you referring to, Councillor Robertson? We can.
It was the amount of money, the dividend we get back from being part of the organisation.
So the dividend is related to use of all frameworks, not just use of the gas framework. So it might be that there's been a reduction in use of other frameworks, which by by all organisation, which has led to a reduction in the amount of rebate. So it comes back to that point of all of the ESPO frameworks contribute towards that rebate, not just the gas framework.
So you could have had an organisation come away from that, which is why it's lower.
Potentially,
okay, fair
yes.
enough. Yeah. On page 22, sorry, I'll be very quick. It should be noted that the total cost of the contract is heavily influenced by wholesale gas prices, which is subject to market volatility and external factors outside the council's control, i.e. wars. As such, the estimate value is indicative and may vary over the term of the contract. Now, my question is, if gas prices continue to rise and fall with the market during this contract, what exactly are we securing with this 4-year contract if we're not securing the actual physical price of the, the kilowatt per hour gas price? I'm just confused as to why they're so anal about a 4-year contract. Why can't it be 2 years, especially with OGR going on?
So, two slightly different matters, if that's okay. So firstly, we do a purchase in advance arrangement. So what ESPO do on our behalf is look for the market dips. So when the oil and gas prices are reduced, they will buy then in bulk and they will secure us at a set amount. This heavily protected us during the conflict in Ukraine. We didn't see any of that volatility and we managed to kind of ride that without undue pressures on our budgets. That is the aim again in the future. So they're doing that forward purchasing, using their market expertise to purchase in advance for us. So that's the benefit and why we don't pay a locked-in kilowatt hour. It does benefit us to approach it in that way. Sorry, the second part of your question was in relation to the term. So the term, the further in advance we can buy utilities, the more we can secure, as in the bulk wholesale that we buy, which drives down our price as well. As Laura's already mentioned, ESPO contracts are typically a 4-year term, which will secure us going into the 2 new authorities. It will make sure that the properties that we have within the portfolios have a gas supply, which is part of the safe and legal. We have a legal requirement to heat our buildings, and it will carry us through the initial stages of those new authorities, so that those new authorities have got assurance that they're providing legal and safe environments, so that then they can go through their own decision-making process. So, yeah, why we would look to do that, and it takes quite a long time to pull something together like this, do the market analysis that the commercial teams have done, so it gives those new authorities the assurance as well.
This would allow ESPO, though, as a buying organisation, to make profit on the amount of energy, is that correct? Or do they apply no commission and no markup on their energy at all from Total Energies?
So we pay a management fee to ESPO, not the markup.
But ESPO could potentially, let's say ESPO buys it cheap, let's say it goes down to 8 pence per kilowatt hour, and then there's a war which happens, and let's say Trump goes to Dubai and starts messing around there and causes trouble, and the oil and the gas and oil prices soar to 30 pence. Could they then go, well, we're still going to give it to you at 15, even though they bought it at 10, therefore they're making a 5 pence per kilowatt hour markup?
So we have full transparency of the value at which they actually bought the commodity at. So so we can see all of that. We have regular meetings with ESPO at the moment, because we currently use them for our gas and electricity. We have regular supplier meetings with them, and we've got that forward and advanced view of what we're going to be paying for the next period of time. So we secure in future, so that it gives us that budget certainty.
Brilliant. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Do we have any other speakers? Nope. Oh, Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I just make a point that I think some of the language that has been used in the chamber so far has been a bit disrespectful to officers. I think to reference officers as lecturing members is not appropriate, and I think if I would kindly ask that we are officers representing the council, we are providing information based on the reports to the best of our abilities. We're not here to lecture anybody, we're here to provide the answers, but I do think there needs to be a bit of respect about behaviours within this chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. That totally valid point. So moving to the proposal which Councillor Dyer proposed and Councillor Corey seconded from the paper. Yeah. All those in favour? Against? Yep. Abstentions? That is carried. Thank you very much for your comments. We'll move on to item 6. Identification of potential investment zone in Lincolnshire. The scrutiny report can be found on pages 43 to 60 of the agenda pack. The actions required are the report invites the committee to review the report and support the identified methodology of a 4-pillar approach to assessing suitable opportunities for investment zone suitability. 2, confirm that based on the methodology followed, the shortlist to be used for a potential investment zone submission is Lincoln Defence Innovation Campus, the A1 corridor / Spitalgate level, South Kesteven Agricultural Zone, rise home to Hemswell Cliff, West Lindsey, and former RAF Scampton, West Lindsey. And 3rd, seek assurances that officers will continue carrying out further work to support the promotion and readiness for wider investor engagement. The report will be presented by Justin Brown, the Assistant Director for Growth. Over to you, Justin.
Chairman, thank you. And this report is the final of 3 reports that we will have brought to you on this subject. And as well as myself presenting the report, I've got Samantha, the Head of Service, at my side. Tony and Francesca, who've done a lot of work on the report, are behind me as well. So if you remember back in late autumn, we did some analysis of the then Chancellor's autumn statement, which identified, amongst other things, significant government investment into already designated investment zones. I think there was £24 million was invested at the time. And at that time, you asked us to go away and look at implications of having one of those zones within Lincolnshire and opportunities related to it. And we gave you a report in, I think it was May, where we set out some of the implications and some of the information, and you subsequently asked us to go away and turn that into a prioritisation report. I would have liked the prioritisation to have gone below 4 sites. However, the number of factors that we're having to consider that have changed have meant that it's my advice to you that we're a bit flexible and we have a slightly longer list. So the most obvious change, of course, is that we have a new Prime Minister, a new set of commitments relating to devolution, and also a new Department of Business and Trade, which is now Business, Trade, Innovation and Science. Yeah. So changes taking place, which means that the context in which we started this journey have shifted a bit. Nonetheless, what we've done is go through the list of sites that we identified in the previous meeting, and we have assessed them against criteria which are set out in the 4 pillars in the report. And they have identified 4 sites that we believe are the ones which would probably be the strongest if we have the opportunity to submit a case for an investment zone. It's probably worth saying that in developing this work, we of course work very closely with the team in the Combined Authority, because they will be the route between government and these sites. We work closely with our colleagues in district councils, having regular meetings with them. And probably most importantly, we work regularly with landowners and with the potential financiers, the investment houses, etc. So we're pulling all that information together into the detailed work that we did in the appendices which are set out to the report. We have gone through that, and we have strongly felt that the 4 sites identified fit very strongly with the criteria. as it stood the last time criteria took place. The criteria may change and we may need to be a bit fleet of foot. But in terms of the 4 sites, Lincoln Science and Investment Park is a very strong site which benefits from a good location, co-location with university. The agriculture growth zone site, which we've identified, again fits with government thinking about investment being connected to higher education, and it is also reasonably well located just to the north of the city. The former RAF Scampton, very close to that agricultural zone area, again reasonably well located, and with, according to the information we have seen from potential purchasers of the site, significant investment capital behind it. And we've also identified a site just south of Grantham, which you'll remember in the early days of this committee we were talking about as very strong for advanced manufacturing. We still believe that is the case, alongside its significant connectivity strengths relating to the A1 and the East Coast Main Line. So our recommendation to you is that for now we focus our attention on those 4 sites, that we are a bit flexible as we see what comes out of government. And my final point is to remember what's written in, I think, page 44 of the report, which sets out that this is just one small part of the overall set of services that we deliver. This is about championing a single area for a particular criteria, for a particular opportunity. And when we get to the point of needing to choose an individual site, that doesn't mean other locations in Lincolnshire do not get things, because of course we invest differently in other locations. So I'll pause there, Councillor French. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Do we have any speakers?
Councillor Robinson, thank you.
Thank you. I've got 5 questions. Do you want me to split that up?
Yes, please.
Yep. I'll start with my first question. So it says in the report that not all, or the investment zones in England, I looked at the website, it says not all investment zones will include tax sites. Are we emphasising that in our models that we are wanting that tax relief, because that is the significant benefit to these investment zones? And I think if we didn't get one of these, I think there would be wouldn't be the success that maybe the other ones would have had.
Yes, I've deliberately said agnostic on the various, I'm going to say sweeteners, there's probably a more professional word than that, because we do not know exactly what the framework of these zones would be. But I would agree with you if we look at analysis of the zones which have been allocated, those which have tax incentives and those which have employment incentives are ones which are more attractive and have been delivered more quickly than others in the country.
Okay. Yeah. And also with the priorities, you said that obviously we've shortlisted these in particular for these sectors. However, obviously there are the change in government has meant that they might have different priorities. Do we have any that are sort of in draft that we can have a look at potentially if they have a change of priority? For example, if they wanted to focus on visitor economy, do we have a proposal that's ready to go rather than just focus on something that might change with his priorities?
So I wouldn't expect the priorities for attracting global investment to change significantly. And yes, across our services, we have between 30 and 40 different activities which we carry out in different geographies, different sectors, different priorities, etc. So if something unexpected were to happen, we would pivot. But my sort of feel at the moment, and what we've seen from the history of these zones over a number of years, is that there will not be a massive change. There could be some change, but the fundamentals of a site that can get away quickly, that is well connected, that can offer some employment opportunity, and that can offer some incentives, is probably going to be the core of any decision a government would take.
Yeah, that sort of connects to one of my sort of further points with some of these are more inland, so they're more towards the East Midlands and away from the coastal areas. I just wondered about some of them being taken into account. So obviously with the infrastructure connections to the coast, there is a disadvantage to those that may have, you know, from Grantham, for example, that has a train connection. Just in giving them an incentive to go to them coastal areas that may be more deprived. Just something to comment on, really.
So for investment zones, I think that anywhere which is more than 20-25 minutes away from the major route network would simply not get the status. That's why I was at pains to stress the other activity we would carry out. So if you were looking at developing a site for commercial use in a coastal area, you would be doing that thinking very much about regeneration rather than rapid growth, I think.
Okay, Councillor Bowles, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, my first question, Councillor Robinson's just asked about the if government changed their position and did we have any ready to go. Second question was on the scoring methodology, Justin, and you've alluded to it kind of in your introduction, was if there are any changes in that, what differences would that make to the shortlist, and have we undertaken any sensitivity testing around that to see if, you know, if there are significant changes in that, will that significantly impact on the shortlisting of the sites? And then my second question, again, you touched on it during your introduction, it was around the partnership working really, because when I read it, particularly around the RAF Scampton site, there was no kind of mention of Scampton Holdings, West Lindsey, so it's some reassurance that what we're looking at here is in complete partnership with what other people with the big investment realistically are proposing, and we're not doubling up the work. We are working with them, and it is hand in glove kind of thing to try and achieve the best possible outcomes.
So in terms of the first point, the sensitivity testing one, I would expect between 80 and 85% of the criteria to remain the same. So there could be some shift, and as you see, we reflect step fusion in the paper, not least because it was well documented that science and innovation was likely to join up with business and trade, and you would expect STEP to be a priority for them. In terms of working in partnership, absolutely the case. We have to be a bit careful, so we understand and know and discuss things with particular developers and so on. One of the things we would end up needing to address, assuming we move forward when the time is right, is the whole matter of subsidy control. So we have to work on making sure that we are promoting investment, recognising it is often private sector led, whilst not using public funding to distort the market. So bit of a balance there, but conversations with developers, finance, district council and combined authority taking place regularly.
Okay, Councillor Dyer next, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you, Justin and the team, for putting these together. As I said earlier, LGR, and I think we should judge everything through LGR, and therefore I'm pleased to see so many of these in the Lincoln Unitary Council area. But just on that, who is actually responsible for putting these bids together? So you mentioned that you feed into the mayoral authority that would fundamentally submit them. I assume there may be competing bids potentially from North and North East Lincolnshire. Potentially, I know they've got the Humber already, but then of course, you know, if quite a few are moving forward, for instance, from the Lincoln Unitary, maybe a district council in the south of the county may want to submit one as well. So I'm just wondering, in terms of the formal process for submitting a bid, is it for LCC currently to submit that to the mayoral authority to then make a decision on bids that they may receive to send them off to government? That makes sense. That's my first question, Chairman. Go for it. That's fine by me. And then my follow-up to that would have been, what is the impact of LGR on these? So depending on how we put these together and the responsibility for these bids to be put together, how does that impact potential work that you're currently undertaking on putting such bids together? But my final point really, and probably rewind several months to the budget setting process, and you know, we're aware that your team had their wings clipped slightly in respect to capacity funding, etc. My question is, clearly officer resource and capacity has been put into forming these bids, but we know, for instance, I think you mentioned, in my head, I've got the Boris Johnson phrase oven ready in my head. I think you may have said sites that can get away quickly. They're both really the same thing. Often with these sites, utilities are quite poor, maybe road access is quite poor, and if you're a government in a hurry wanting things to set off quite quickly, if you're potentially having to enter negotiations with utility companies to sort out road links, that may delay things slightly. So is there the potential for this authority to commit resources potentially for ensuring that these sites are as oven ready as possible, potentially, particularly the sites that actually, if government weren't to move ahead with something, maybe somebody else would? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Go on, Justin.
So yes, I would expect that the process of submitting these to government would be very much that the combined authority would consider various sites. What I think is really important is that LCC develops a position so that when or if these are announced, we're ready. When Liz Truss was Prime Minister, I think you'll remember that, there was a very brief window. And I remember Samantha and I sitting in my office with a map, with lots of people telling us that theirs was the right investment site. And that wasn't the way to do it. What we've tried to do is put something based on evidence and so on. In terms of the point about LGR, just one reflection I would have is that we can expect to see the biggest, most successful authorities over the next 20, 30, 40 years having significant investment in their area and significant business rates uplift. An investment zone is one way of achieving that. And there were articles in the papers at the weekend about possibility of more of that money being held locally, potentially going into mayoral combined authorities. So it feels as though having this will be of value to the new geographies. And in terms of readiness, yes, absolutely. And there are two ways of achieving readiness, aren't there? One is you sign some checks, and the other one is you work with a developer to try and help get them over the line. And the latter is what we are doing at the moment. So Councillor Matthews had a meeting with a number of businesses last week, and one of the things that came through loud and clear from those businesses was they would welcome greater hand-holding to help them deliver their investment plans. So that is the way we'd be looking to take forward and getting towards readiness.
Do you want to come back on that, Councillor Dyer?
Thank you for that, Justin. Just in respect to that, and I appreciate the hand-holding is important, and that's something where LCC can certainly add value. But are other parts of the country moving forward with potentially unlocking those sites ahead of any government announcement? Because if that is something that this committee were to agree to as we enter the budget setting process, this committee put in a formal request that resource is allocated to your team potentially unlocking these sites or for you to have access to, would that be of help or of use?
So when it comes to investment zones, it's all about ability of the market to deliver. And so I think that in the current situation, we would be able to work with potential financiers to bring things forward. Some of the schemes that Councillor Robinson mentioned, where it's more about regeneration and so on, they will not be market-led.
Thank you.
Councillor Rundle, please.
Hi, Justin. Thank you very much for your report. It's welcomed. A lot of these sites are very close to Lincoln, and naturally developers, they don't need a lot of hand-holding. They're there to solve problems, to make money, and some of these sites would be quite easy for them to develop. So I don't see, and obviously, yeah, they need various things which you can hand-hold them, etc., to get them over the line. But the market would naturally dictate that they would do these investments because they are in great locations. They are, you know, they have the links, they're close to the motorway, etc. So, but as a council, should we be helping that side of the line, or should we be looking to invest in, like Councillor Robinson said, more challenging areas where there is no development? I know years ago in Boston they did the Marsh Lane investment where they put a lot of roads in there, and Marsh Lane has been tremendously successful, and it's created an awful lot of jobs in Boston, etc. And obviously coming from Boston, I'd like to see a bit of investment in Boston, and we're not going to get that investment because quite naturally developers can't build roads, you know, like dual carriageways and things like that and like you quite rightly say, the developer doesn't want to build where he can't sell or rent his units. So could we, this proposal or this report you've done doesn't really consider putting in new roads? And from Boston, I want a bypass. You know, we want the Boston bypass. I know it's a dream, probably never get it, but should we, as a council, be focusing on more challenging areas and try to get them developers to develop there and see why they can't develop there? And if it's a road or whatever, should we not be budgeting for that and developing in rundown areas? Just an observation, really, but your report's amazing, and it's great to see that Lincolnshire Council is very proactive in trying to get development to the county.
Everything's a balance, isn't it? And as I said earlier, this investment zone would be one part of what we do. The State of the County report that we brought last time has got incredible amounts of data underneath it, and we are currently using that data to identify what are the various little injections which will make things happen in each area. And you're absolutely right. Boston, an area being both peripheral and also struggling in terms of traffic, is in need of a really clear transport plan. We attracted the money for the improvements between Spalding and Boston 4 or 5 years ago on the back of the economic growth that you just described. And increasingly, I think that economic growth is the way of justifying investment in critical infrastructure, which was a really long and rambly way of saying, yeah, in my advice is it's both. It's both the investment in the places where the market could deliver, but you accelerate it. But with other papers, like the one Samantha will present shortly around helping long-term unemployed people into employment, we need to get the balance of everything together.
Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just add to that was the whole purpose behind the Economic Development Fund that the council cut earlier in the year, to where the market's failing, where there isn't the, as you say, where businesses aren't chomping at the bit to invest, LCC could have stepped in and spent money in those areas, and that could have been a recommendation from this committee for a place like Boston. That's what happened, for instance, in Holbeach with the food enterprise zone. So councils do have the ability to do that, but organisations are going sometimes will have to put money where their mouths are and invest in that. And frankly, this council made a different decision earlier this year.
Councillor Baxter, please.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to respond to the my admonishment earlier on from Mr. Kavanagh. I'm sorry that he's offended by my use of the English language, and I'll try and beat about the bush in future in order to avoid offence. I'm used to an organisation where the politicians are open to scrutiny and that questions, including the rough and tumble of politics and so on, questions are able to be put to the executive members. So I mean no offence, and apologies if any are necessary. Perhaps they are. I was going to say, similar to Councillor Dyer, we had an economic investment programme which said that, among other things, this council would invest, through borrowing, would invest in an advanced manufacturing facility at pretty much the same site as the one that's being put forward at the A1 corridor, the only one of the four that lands outside Lincoln. Have we not undermined our argument slightly by failing to put our money where our mouth is earlier on and failing to get on with facilitating an advanced manufacturing facility? And just for clarity, the government might choose one of these, all of these, or none of these, presumably. We put forward all four and hope for the best, and government, in their wisdom, will decide which one is most politically expedient.
Thank you. Thank you for apologising as well. That's not easy to do.
So, at the moment, what I'm looking for is your support that this is a short list of four. It isn't about putting one in now, 2, 3 or 4. It's about saying, at the point that the government presses go, we've got a list of sites that we believe would be right for this investment. There are probably 200 or so allocated commercial sites across Lincolnshire, so getting down to 4 is particularly valuable. In terms of advanced manufacturing facility, the one thing I would say is we continue to explore how we can deliver that based upon a government-funded revenue-only model, still using the data that we identified that the South Kesteven area would be the strongest place for that. And of course, the site we were talking about at the time was the compound for the Grantham Southern Relief Road, and that's still being used as a compound for another couple of years. So hopefully we can get something over the line in terms of using some government funding on a revenue basis. But the issue of advanced manufacturing as an economic opportunity around South Kesteven remains a strong one.
Am I right in thinking as well, if it gets to the point where we do feel as though there is money to put into a project, rather than just having £20 million which we have to spend no matter what, it kind of is a more sensible decision to go back at a later date and go, if there's any money which does need to be put into a project because it is guaranteed to make money or do good service for the area, is that not a better way of doing it?
So I'm sitting next to the Section 151 officer at the moment, which is guaranteed to get me a kick on the shin in a moment. But clearly public finances are pretty tight, and if during the course of time there is a particular scheme with a particular business case, there is money available, then presumably in budget setting you consider that in the round with all of the other pressures on council budget.
So the only comment I will make that any additions to the capital programme and any additions to our borrowing is a matter for full council following recommendation from executive.
Thank you. Councillor Daesh, please.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Chair. Like this. What I would say is politically, we are where we are. We are dealing with this today, and what I would say is I would give 100% support for this. There may be variable changes in those areas, we don't know. But at the end of the day, if we don't do nothing and we don't vote for this, then we're not going anywhere. So I will be 100% behind this. Thank you.
Councillor Corey, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Justin, for this paper. It's been a long time getting here, and there's a lot of data, there's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of evidence behind this paper to support the sites that have come forward. And as you said, there are many that are on the B list. That it's not a no for them, but they're still there, and there's still an aspiration for more sites to be supported. If and when the opportunity arises. I know that Councillor Gibson isn't here to answer questions.
Yes, he is.
Well, apparently not, but could I, through the chairman, ask Councillor Gibson if he will take back to the portfolio holder for growth, who's also the leader and has not bothered to come to this meeting for the second month in a row, the comments made by Councillors Arundel, Baxter and Dyer about the removal of the growth fund and the diminishing of this authority's ability to support economic success of this county across the county. Thank you, Chairman.
Do you want to answer that, Councillor Gibson? Or?
Can do, Chairman, if you wish. Obviously, all comments are taken back and observed by the executive.
Thank you. Did you want to jump in as
yes,
well?
Yes, I never made that comment. I never said that at all. So I'm just trying to put on the record, please.
Councillor Arundel did make a comment that it would be nice if Boston were to be on the list and could be the recipient of much needed public funds for economic development. So I was taking his point as part of a wider point that you can only spend the money that you have, and if that money is being removed, then, you know, we'd like that to go to the executive. Thank you.
Thank you, yeah, cleared that up.
Because we know obviously how the council is going to be mapped out now, I think it would be nice if we had, because obviously there's 2 investment zones, is that right, which it's got funding for the 24 million. It would be nice if one of them was in each council, each major council, rather than 2 being put in one council. Who ultimately decides then in the end if these go forward? Is it the government?
So yes, it will be the government to decide, and they will take a decision based upon, we think, primarily impact on UK PLC with some local benefit. What they won't do is take a decision based on fair shares, and therefore we might get 0. We might not, who knows. So it's down to us being able to make a case for something which is as strong as possible. As I say, about 80-ish% of the criteria I think will stay the same. It's a UK PLC matter, it's about innovation, it's about business and education. There may be some local considerations, but I can't imagine this one's about fair shares.
If there's no more speakers, then we will move on to the proposal. I move that the report be received, that the committee supports the identified 4-pillar approach methodology, that we endorse the list for potential investment zone submission compiled, and that we have received assurances that officers will continue carrying out further work to support the promotion and readiness for wider investor engagement. All in favour? I think that's unanimous. Thank you. And we will now have a 10-minute comfort break, so be back at 10:02. Okay, we will continue the meeting. I did say 10:02, but this clock is very wrong. So we're on to item 7 now, developing a modern work experience and early careers model for Lincolnshire. This scrutiny report can be found on pages 61 to 72. The report invites the committee to consider a report and to 1, review and comment on the direction of travel and progress made in developing Lincolnshire County Council's modern work experience and early careers model, and 2, to seek assurances that officers review the outcomes of the pilot project and pursue other funding opportunities to deliver the scheme on a bigger scale if the current pilots are successful. The report will be presented by Samantha Harrison, Head of Economic Development, and Lee Douglas, Careers Hub Strategic Lead. Over to you, Samantha.
Thank you, Chairman. So I will talk through the beginning of the paper and then I'll hand over to my colleague Tony Kavanagh to talk about the Lincolnshire County Council Early Years programme as well. So you will recall back in May that we came to the Scrutiny Committee with a number of challenges. We had feedback from our business community that they were getting multiple requests from a variety of programmes, but also from schools in terms of work experience requests. We were also seeing a fragmented picture in terms of which sectors were offering work experience, but also in terms of pathways, so making sure that students were aware of the variety and the level of careers that were available across Lincolnshire. And we've gone away and looked to see how we can help with an employer-led approach at a coordinated level where we take a strategic lead and oversight. And I'm pleased to say that in terms of the Careers Hub, Lee and his team have been able to secure some funding from the Careers Enterprise Company to pilot a number of activities for us to review moving forward. So the first one is to pilot an offer for schools and for employers in terms of a web portal called Futures for All, and that web portal will enable employers to input their information. So they could say that they want to take 3 interns, or they want 4 apprentices, or they want to do 2 weeks work experience, or they want to participate in a virtual work experience model. They will list their requirements on the website, and then it will go out to the schools, and their students will be able to apply and list what they would like to participate in. This model will be free of charge to the schools and the employers, and it's different from what schools currently have. Some schools have paid for systems. Some schools do it by parents helping to select and find their own work experience for children. So we feel with the new requirements that are coming in September 2026, where all school children from years, I'm just going to double check, 7 to 11 will be required to have 50 hours of work experience throughout their schooling education. So this system, we feel, and we'd like to pilot, will actually see whether we can help coordinate that offer and make it easier for the employers, the pupils and the schools to navigate through. In terms of the system, we will be able to measure the success of the system. We'll be able to look at the number of employers registered, the number of work experience opportunities and work placements that have been completed, the number of schools and colleges that are engaging with our system, employer, schools and learner satisfaction rates, and also, more importantly, the gaps in the sectors that aren't providing work experience, and then we'll be able to reach out to those businesses to get them involved and register on to the web portal. For us, it's about making sure that we retain as many of our young people within the county and employed in our growing sectors. So that's the first opportunity that we've got. The second opportunity is that the team have secured some Aspiring Pathways funding. And this is for we're able to pilot it. It's a small amount of funding, but we're able to pilot it in an area where we feel has got the most opportunity to make a real benefit. So we're looking at supporting alternative provision locations. There are 7 in the county, and these alternative provision locations support our children who are not in mainstream school for a variety of reasons. And these are the children that do face potentially becoming on the Not in Education, Employment or Training register. So this programme, Aspiring Pathways, is looking at an internship type approach. So it's not just work experience within a business. What we're looking at is a model. So it will be, it could be an employer encounter, it could be employee visits and work experience visits. It could take the form of mini internship programs. It could look at mentoring and support, and it could look at employer encounters. They're showcasing different sectors and also different employers talking about what they're doing within the school setting. It's a more flexible, personalised approach for the educational setting, so we're really keen to pilot this and see how it works through. Once again, very similar monitoring measurements to the previous programme about starts and completions, increases in learner confidence, and for us it's about that kind of how can we engage our employers to support our individuals within these alternative provision settings. I will close my element there. Now if I hand over to Tony Kavanagh to talk about the early years programme, and then we'll take questions at the end if that's okay. Thank you.
Go on, Tony.
Thank you. Thanks, Samantha. So, yeah, just to bring Growth Scrutiny up to date with respect to the developments within sort of early careers within the actual council itself, it felt wise to sort of bring this here because it works quite well in tandem with what Samantha was just talking about there, about across the county and nationally in terms of initiatives, etc. Obviously, ordinarily workforce issues would go to Oversight and Scrutiny and Management Board, but it does make sense to pull this in here. So, yeah, so as obviously we're a significantly large employer in the county, and for a while now we've had a structured early careers programme, and that cuts across a number of areas, but works in line with the people strategy priority, which is about skills for the future. And essentially what we have the people strategy and a people strategy and culture board which has oversight of some of the 5 key priorities within the council's people strategy. I think in respect to early careers, over the last sort of 12 months, this has been an area of growth for us in terms of our development and the importance of the work. We have obviously apprenticeships, work experience opportunities, as well as sort of insight days and internships and so on, which I'll just go on to explain. So we've, in terms of internships, we've had 3 internship placements over the past sort of 12 months within communities and transformation. Clearly, 3 internships isn't going to set the world on fire, but it's work in process and work in progress, and it's about ensuring that we can start to further develop that. Members will probably be aware that we've been pretty good in terms of apprenticeships for the last few years, utilising 95% utilisation rate. At present, we have around 250 or so apprenticeships, of which 163 are directly employed by the Lincolnshire County Council and 85 within the maintained schools, as well as we have a number, 6 actual care leaver apprenticeships as well, which is good. And from our apprenticeships, generally, about 40% are aged between 16 and 24. With this has been new this year. We've supported 8 T-level industry placements. So for colleagues that aren't aware of what a T-level is, it is a part vocational, part academic qualification, which includes 45 days of industry work experience and is equivalent to 3 A levels. We've managed to facilitate those across highways, adult care, finance, digital services, which has been good for our links with the education providers. And another area of growth, which is, from small acorn, shall we say, has been around in-person work experience opportunities for people aged 14 and above. where we've gone so far, so we've had 33 in-person work experience placements. What we've also done is this year, which is the first, is significant as a number of insight days where we work with the schools, particularly the larger establishments, to either visit them or invited them here to explain around the different types of careers that we have within the council. So we've had a few sessions here where we talked to about 50 students, and we've also, as I said, we've had bespoke days with Lincoln Christ Hospital as well as Gainsborough, and we've also been to Lincoln UTC since, which is around 90 students. So, as I say, it's work in progress and growth, and I suppose just to be clear that as a county council, we're trying our best to lead by example and support this early careers strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Do we have any speakers?
Councillor Corey first, please.
Sorry, point of order.
What's your point of order, Councillor Baxter?
My point of order is, who is the executive councillor responsible for this portfolio? It looks a lot like HR. So that would be
Point of information. Who is? Would it not be Sean? Growth.
So vocational training sits within the Executive Councillor for Growth's portfolio. When we brought a paper on skills and employment a couple of months ago, you asked us to bring some information about how the County Council as a major employer can show and set an example as an employer, and that's why Tony's describing this part. But it's all within the context of vocational learning and employment support, which sits within the growth portfolio holders' responsibilities.
So for clarity, this issue has nothing to do with HR at Lincolnshire County Council.
It's a demonstration of the county council setting a positive example in the way that we support T-levels and apprenticeships.
Councillor Baxter.
I'm not sure that answered my question. My fundamental question is not about personality, it's about process. But is it appropriate that the executive the executive support officer for HR is scrutinising this paper?
I think we answered that earlier in the minutes. When we were doing the minutes, it's basically Bailey's choice, and he's spoken to Head of Democratic Services about it previously. So I'll move on to Councillor Corey.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the paper, Samantha, and your verbal reports, Samantha and Tony. You will have seen the government's announcement this morning, and apologies for bringing this on you, but so the government announced this morning that it's going to tackle the 1 million young people between 16 and 24 in this country, not in this county, in this country that are not in employment, education or training. And I know this paper is not specifically about that, but could I have your early thoughts, anybody's early thoughts, on how the government's announcement is going to impact on this? And I know that we've just heard that this is about the county council's response and how we as a major employer across the county are using our resources and how our opportunities to tackle this. But one of the companies that was quoted in the BBC's story this morning is the Chief Financial Officer at building materials firm Hughes Gray, which has a lot of assets across the county. And they say that one of the things that they're struggling with is the apprenticeships levy, which I know, I think I remember Tony mentioned. So can you just give us your early thoughts on that? Apologies, but I just think it's an opportune moment just to bring that to
Thank you, Councillor Corey. Justin, do you want to come in?
Yeah, sorry, I appreciate Samantha and Tony's paper, but I love things like this. So I suppose the first thing to say is that we've seen, haven't we, through our data, that long-term unemployment in 16 to 24-year-olds in Lincolnshire is higher than the national average. So NEET is a real problem in Lincolnshire, as well as being something of more than 1 million people in the country. Our nervousness is that any response to NEET activity could risk creating extra complexion in the system as opposed to solving things. So if you remember when the COVID lockdowns were just finishing, the government introduced half a dozen different schemes to help people back into employment, and very few people could see the difference between any of those half a dozen schemes, and we're nervous that something like that will be introduced. We recognise from talking to employers that they find it difficult to recruit staff. They have a lot of vacancies, and these are not always skills shortages, they are vacancies of simply, are there people applying for the jobs? So we do believe there's something that can be done, which by linking employers with learning providers and with people who are on the NEET register, that we can probably sort something out. Our nervousness immediately is that a number of government programmes are introduced in a well-meaning fashion, which perhaps don't do it for this area.
Do you want to come back on that,
Yes,
Councillor
please.
Corey?
Yeah, thank you, Justin. Is this the technical grades that the government is seeking to tackle this gap with? Is that going to address any mismatch between what young people are being taught in schools and at college and what industry needs? Is that what the government's trying to do? And is that also, Justin smiling, I'm sure this is something else he'll love to answer as well, is that something that the work that you're already doing and that the government is seeking to do, will that aid your work, or will that be a bolt-on, or will that get in the way and add complexity?
So the scale the government can operate at is much greater than ours. So we have to design it to aid, and I believe there'll be an expectation that combined authorities are involved in the design, which will be of use. I sort of think that the two messages which came out this morning, tackling NEET and introducing vocational training within schools, were probably two separate messages, being a little bit conflated. One of the things that we know from the analysis colleagues in Children's Services do, and from the direct experiences that Lee's teams see when young people come into school and work situations, is that simple things like confidence, experience of working 9 to 5 and so on, are matters which are probably as important for that client group as supporting vocational learning. So it's big and complicated, and there'll be lots of different initiatives. And if there's one thing that can be done at a local level, whether by a combined authority or by a local authority, it's try and make sense of it for the people it's trying to support.
Thank you.
Councillor Baxter, did you have a question, or you just want to... No. Councillor Bowles next, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks for that, Samantha and Tony. And I do support this approach and the policy that you're looking to introduce. Having worked in a secondary school in Gainsborough that scrapped its whole careers, advice, work experience for a number of years, and seeing firsthand, both as an employee and then as a councillor, damage that has done to employment and skills in our area, I think this is, this does need to be supported. And it was pleasing to hear, I think, Tony, you said you'd been in a school in Gainsborough. I'm assuming it is that secondary school. So I think credit needs to go to that head teacher who in the last couple of years has completely U-turned and opened the school up to all partners. So I think that is to be applauded. I guess my question ranging from that is how how confident and how can we be reassured that, given that the majority of schools in Lincolnshire are academies and part of big trusts who typically have their own thoughts, approaches, staff to deliver these things, how can we be reassured that this approach will be welcomed, will be worked with in partnership across the county, so that we don't end up in some sort of postcode lottery where, you know, only certain residents are able to, you know, see the benefit of this. Sort of moving on to that same question, but in a different sphere, reaching the most the hardest students to help. You know, you've identified in the report the alternative provision, you know, and how they are at the high risk of becoming NEETs. So how again can we be reassured that this is going to reach those high risk students out there, whether that's NEETs, whether that's the hugely increasing amount of homeschool children at present? How are we going to make sure those children have access to this? Again, so that it is benefiting those most hard to reach and doesn't just always go to those most likely able to access these opportunities. And then my final point is on the employer participation. I've raised this several times in various different contexts, but again, the point that a lot of the small and micro businesses in my area make to me is that they would so love to be involved in these schemes and have kids on work experience, but they just really struggle with a lack of capacity to deal with administration, safeguarding, supervision. So can we have some reassurance that this scheme will help us work with those people to get more opportunities out there for those young people and those businesses? Thank you.
Thank you. Samantha,
Thank you, Councillor Bowles. So in terms of the how it we received, I know that Lee's team work across the county with all of the school, all of the careers leaders across all of the schools currently, and we had our end of year careers event in July, and there was a soft launch there, and it was well received by all the members that were attending, and they covered all of the schools. For us, it's about meeting that gap where there are schools that haven't got the funding to pay into quite expensive systems. So this is a pilot. It particularly leans in well to people that are in a homeschool environment and smaller schools that haven't got that capacity or not in an academy that are able to fund it. So we will be monitoring take up, but also because Lee's team are working directly in schools week in, week out, we've built a very strong relationship with the schools, and we work in partnership, so there will be that open communication and dialogue and understanding of why, you know, if a school doesn't want to take it up, why, but also that engagement so that we can shape the website moving forward as well. In terms of how do we make sure that we're reaching the individuals that most need that support in terms of gaining work experience? Lee's team do have a tool that we use, a system called Compass Plus, and on that Compass Plus system, it has an element called On Track Plus, and there are 13 indicators that are on the system that a school can use to identify where pupils could be most at risk of becoming NEET. So it looks at attendance, indices of deprivation, those that are on free school meals, those that are on pupil premium, anyone that's been suspended. So there are a list of categories that we can track to understand it, and it integrates with the existing school system, so we can track and understand and start to identify at a very early stage those that are at risk, but also then it means we can put targeted interventions into those schools. Have I missed anything on that side, Lee? I'm conscious my technical expert is behind me.
No, that was brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you. And then in terms of engaging employers, we're really conscious, and we heard you at the previous committee where you were saying about lots of paperwork to do, you know, lots of assurances, how can it be all contained? This system will contain, so they'll do the safeguarding information, the insurance information, it'll be logged ready so that they won't have to provide it multiple times. It'll be ready to draw down. So hopefully, I'm saying it should be more efficient and effective and beneficial to an employer. I think for us, we have still got quite a strong job, and I lean into what Tony said earlier on about showcasing the county council as an exemplar, and the things that we have piloted in terms of the different mechanisms to modern work experience, because we know that 98% of our businesses in the county are small and medium enterprise businesses, and they haven't got the capacity. So how can we look at different ways of modern work experience, be it, you know, a virtual experience within a factory or a virtual model, or then come and do an industry talk. So it's about making that work experience fit for the business, but also fit for the student moving forward. So hopefully when we come back, we'll show you how that flexible programme has mapped out and how it's been received across the county. Thank you.
All right. Do we have anybody else?
Councillor Condell, please.
Thank you. And thank you, Justin and Samantha, for the information here. It's very, very useful. Just backing up what Councillor Bowles has said there, and you've alluded to some of the answers, that the small and medium businesses really, really struggle with all the documentation. I know what you're setting out here is a small template and for use to see how it works out. But going forward, are you anticipating that app, for want of a better word, will be available to all employees just to enter their data on, so schools can go there and say, it's Ray Condell's car wash at so-and-so, and he's got the insurance and all the other bits and pieces there, therefore they don't have to go back time and time again to the employer?
Yes, that's correct. So the Futures for All website is open to all employers now. So that is county-wide. So anyone can go and input their detail, their work experience opportunities, if they want to do internships or they want apprentices. That is live, and that's the one we're piloting. The Aspirations programme, that's the smaller pilot that we're doing with the alternate provisions. So there, I guess one is county-wide and one we're just tailoring, just because of the amount of money that we've been able to secure currently, and then we'll see whether we can afford to roll that out in future.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the report. Councillor Bowles sort of asked my question about the incentives for employers. I think that will, especially with the paperwork, that'll be a help for those small, medium businesses. Just in regards to the one single point access for employers, my concern is, and it's maybe sort of a wider point for the whole service, but there's a lot of young people that go through these. They don't necessarily find the career they want. They go into hospitality, and then they want to come back into something like this that they may have not been as interested in before. So it's just those people under 24, sort of my sort of age group, that have went into employment and then want to find a full-time career rather than stick into sort of hospitality. Whether there's anything that can be integrated into the system. I know this is a sort of a trial, but bringing that to those people that are they want a better career and to fill those job vacancies and skills vacancies, and give them the opportunities as well. Don't know what work could be done there.
So if I will start by saying it, and we fully understand that somebody might do some work experience. I remember I went and did some work experience in a bank, and I thought I wanted to work in a bank, and it was great. Went and did my work experience and thought it's definitely not the place I want to work, and that was good for me because at least I knew. And then you can choose your next pathway. I think for this, the system we've got, and I'll get Lee to correct me, the other elements that we've got in terms of our career support are insights into different sectors and industry talks. So anybody could look in terms of our Careers Hub resources, and whether they had a second internship or whether they looked at working with an employer in a modern work experience setting, we can still offer that. But there are resources out there now that they can start engaging with currently that we've got that are live, in terms of industry days or in terms of you know, showcasing the visitor economy sector or the manufacturing sector. So it's that stage, and we fully recognise people have a portfolio of careers now, so it's that dipping in and out. Linked to this, in terms of our adult skills programme, we also have information, advice and guidance support officers that will talk with people about different careers at an adult level as well. So we're trying to cover it on both elements of the side, you know, from the student side through to adults that are wanting a change of direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Dyer, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I've just had a look whilst you've been talking at the Futures for All website. So this is a national thing, isn't it? So I'm assuming LCC is looking after or managing for this part of the world in terms of businesses that apply and go in. That's good, thank you. So just on that, who at LCC is, or is anybody doing this, is just making sure that these are actually good quality work experience placements? Because we've all seen people on work experience throughout our time, and if we were to provide those opportunities, and if people were to give up their time to be on work experience, you'd want them to get something out of it rather than sat behind a desk somewhere folding paper or something like that. So are we doing any follow-up to make sure that actually these businesses that apply, that we're responsible for in Lincolnshire, are they putting forward good quality work experience that young people can benefit from? And then it was just to thank Tony as well for bringing what LCC is doing. I think I mentioned that at the last meeting, and it's fantastic to see where all the figures are pulled together. I think, again, LCC is doing a significant amount, not just work experience, but the apprenticeships and 95% utilisation of the levy. My question just on that, I'm assuming that's just direct LCC employees. So there will be, for instance, contractors at Belfor Beatty where young people may be getting work experience through them. Or have we got any idea of the actual extended supply chain and work experience and potential apprenticeship opportunities through the supply chain as well? Again, I think I mentioned at the last one, I know certainly with the Relief Road project, a big part of their social value is reaching out to schools, apprenticeship programs, work experience programs, etc. And then just, Matt, you mentioned the safeguarding, which is fantastic. Contractors, I've just mentioned that. And my final point really on that, and it's just that public sector duty. So I'll mention LGR again. For everything I've spoken about today, I may as well get it in. Just as we think about LGR and moving forward, are we aware of what the other councils in Lincolnshire are doing? And are we going to make sure that as we move through that period, that these opportunities at what district councils offer as well are all being fed into this website? So all of our partner authorities are also fully behind this. And that was all I wanted to say, Chairman.
Samantha, do you want to answer what you can, and then we'll go to Tony?
Yes, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'll answer the last one first, and then I'll go to Lee for the technical question, if that's okay. So in terms of the other local authorities, the Careers Hub service covers the whole of Greater Lincolnshire, so it also covers North and North East Lincolnshire. It's part of our contract. And it is early stage, as I say. We launched the Futures for All website in July. There will be more of a louder launch in September, the next academic year. We are reaching out across the patch. We are working closely with our colleagues within the district councils, but it is that service for all. So we're trying to get as many employers listed on here as possible. In terms of the technical details and the quality assessment, if I could just hand over to Lee to talk through the processes.
Thank you, Samantha, and thank you, Councillor. So we will recruit employers, but naturally employers can see us trying to recruit them and apply directly. So firstly, to meet the meaningful requirement, which is written down. So an employer would apply. They would come through to either us, or we would put them through to the help desk, and then they would suggest what it is they actually want to do. What we would then do locally or nationally through Futures for All is help that employer to design the work experience opportunity that meets the meaningful requirement of Equal-X, which is the model that the government are talking about. On top of that, if they're saying it's more aligned to traditional work experience, it would need to meet the requirements of Gatsby Benchmark 6 again, and there's a meaningful criteria that underpins that as well. So it's not a case that can say, I've got a car wash and you're going to come wash cars, and I'm going to upload it. There's almost a process to go through that we would work with the employer to do that.
Tony, do you want
to? Do you want me to answer the question from Councillor Dyer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'll defer to Laura on sort of the intricacies, because she'll have a better idea from a commercial perspective. In terms of the numbers that I've quoted, yeah, you're absolutely right. They're from employees of the county council and the schools. But we do have mechanisms in place which I'll defer to Laura on in terms of some of our big contracts and those sorts of things. So, Laura, if you don't mind picking that up.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, as you've rightly said, the Balfour Beatty contract has high amounts of social value within it, and we do monitor and measure those. And, for example, 25-26, there were 4 graduate placements, 9 apprentices, 59 councillor scheme days, 7 work experience placements, 4 schools and careers events, estimated at around £55 million worth of social value when you put all those proxies together in the local area. The broader supply chain visibility is something we're looking at as part of the social value strategy, and how we can increase that understanding of what social value is delivered, not just from our primary contracts, but also through that supply chain. So it isn't something that we have great visibility of right now. We know it's a problem and we are actively doing something about it. And as I mentioned earlier, I think a couple of times actually, we're bringing that back to October Scrutiny. So this is actually really helpful to know what types of questions and key lines of inquiry you'll have to make sure that we can cover that off.
Yeah, go on.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for those answers. Just to follow up from what Lee said. So I appreciate the Futures for All. That's a national website, and we're the local organisation that feeds into that. Who actually is fundamentally responsible for the auditing of the work experience placements? Does that fall to LCC? Or, for instance, if somebody goes in and they have a terrible time and what was advertised wasn't what happened, who do they raise that with? Is that LCC or is that the Futures for All? Because the question I'm getting at really is, that's potentially a lot of work for somebody to do. And if that's LCC, no, you're shaking your head, because there's a lot of resources there involved. Thank you.
Cheers. Do we have another speaker?
Yeah, Councillor Dyche, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for the report. Thank you, Chair. I'm going to come at this at a slightly different angle. Because I'm on scrutiny for children and culture, I've asked 2 officers to get me a year's worth of school leavers and find out where they've gone. So employment, further education, apprenticeships, anything to do with the figures so that I can collate them, and I can use this as well. I basically think this is a fundamentally good pilot, but there are things that I would like to see. Obviously, you've got STEM people that were, or students that have basically gone to university because they've got the qualifications. So that's not in this remit. What I'm looking at is vocational, which I was more interested in, is to ensure that youngsters have got 100% ability, not only for county council, but also for private industry, which I think I would like to see private industry. I know the ladies told us about Balfour Beatty, but the rest of the county, south as well as north, east as well as west. I would like to see the figures of those apprenticeships, how they're distributed with the people within the county, whether they're in a clump, whether they're individual, whether in different areas, and also the ability for schools to turn around and say, we like what this pilot's doing, can we take it further? So if the pilot's successful, how much further can you take it? That's my questions were. Just an observation as well. But I like this very much.
Thank you. So in terms of the mapping, I will let Lee answer some of that kind of tracking element. But in terms of the apprenticeship information, we do, part of our adult learning team, we do analyse the number of apprenticeship opportunities that are in the offered throughout the county. So we look at the National Apprenticeship Service and pull off Lincolnshire data, and we have a report that comes into my team on a monthly basis that states which of our large employers, which employers are offering apprenticeships, and where they are in the county and what sectors there are. So that does come through, and we can put anybody on a circulation list to receive that information for us in order to track and understand which sectors are more proactive than others and where the gaps are. In terms of the enhancements and for schools to take this forward, the website, there may be opportunity for us to flex some of the elements. So we are white labelling the national programme as part of the county council offer. So we can feed into it, and there will be a management group to feed into that and flex it. In terms of the Aspiring Pathways model, obviously we're going to pilot that in terms of the alternate provision, but it would be great if we can showcase the results of that through other schools, and then if other school settings are keen, we can look to work with the Careers Enterprise Company to see if we can secure further rollout money from that programme as well. So it's an exciting time in terms of being able to pilot activity and having the funding to do that, which we haven't had for a while.
Lee, do you want to come in?
I'll try and stay in lane because I can only answer part of what you asked. So we don't measure or we don't collect destination data. However, when we audit schools, and we audit schools termly against the Gatsby benchmarks, it is captured in there. So we will ask them what are the schools' destinations and where are their learners going. I think it's really important for schools to understand that so they can design their careers education curriculum to meet local destination, local employer need. In terms of scaling up, all of these programs are there for the schools, and if they've got potentially funding, good employer engagement, good relationships, they could build models like this, and many schools do some of it. I mean, at the moment, this is about helping. The destination data is available online, but it is lagged by, I think, a year or 2 years. So again, we don't necessarily see that. Through the Aspiring Pathways programme we want to do, we want to be able to track that piece. So any learner that comes onto Aspiring Pathways from an alternate provision, we want to know that they've selected a destination and that they've gone to the destination and hopefully sustained a destination. And we'd work with the school to do that because they do have that responsibility to track.
So you've got a student that's been out on work experience. They want an apprenticeship, but they haven't got the right academic qualifications. Would you push them on to something vocational so they're using their head and their hands?
That would come down to guidance and the guidance they receive in schools. So that's statutory for schools to provide careers guidance. It should be delivered by a level 6 guidance professional. So if a learner doesn't have the academic qualifications to get into a level 3 apprenticeship, which I think is what you might be describing, with the introductions of a foundation level apprenticeship or vocational apprenticeships coming in the future, are there opportunities there for learners? So, and we would hope that the school will allow that conversation to happen between the individual learner and the careers advisor employed by the school.
I just think the disappointment with the students that can't do an apprenticeship, that the alternative has got to seem like a good way to go vocationally. So the emphasis on those vocations should be slightly higher to ensure that when the students leave, that they can take up those vocational jobs thinking that they've got what they wanted, basically.
Yeah, thank you, Barry. Do we have any more speakers? That's it. Okay, then we will move on to the proposal. I move that the committee has considered the report, that we note the progress made in developing Lincolnshire County Council's modern work experience and early careers model, and that we have received assurances that officers will review the outcomes of the pilot project and pursue other funding opportunities to deliver the scheme on a bigger scale. We also ask that a further update on this is brought back to this committee for consideration around 6 months-ish, 6 to 12 months. Yeah. I'll say 6 months. Can I ask you raise your hand if you...
Sorry, I was just going to ask, we will be doing a full evaluation at the 12-month stage to give it a chance to embed, and if we're not launching it till September, so we can give an update at 6 months, but we'll have the full impact evaluation at 12 months, just to be clear.
So it should be about 12 months then, yeah. Can I ask you raise your hand if you agree? I think that's unanimous, thank you. We move on to item 8. Economic Infrastructure Commercial Portfolio Performance Report. This scrutiny report can be found on pages 73 to 88 of the agenda. The committee is invited to review and note the contents of this paper for information purposes and provide feedback on the results of the tenant satisfaction survey. The report will be presented by Justin Brown, the Assistant Director for Growth. Over to you, Justin.
Chairman, thank you. And this is an annual report which gives information about the performance of our commercial portfolio, which is managed by Simon to my right. So a reminder that the portfolio has really 3 distinct elements to it. It has some industrial premises and some industrial land. It has some regeneration projects, and it has some business centres. And essentially, in terms of the report, I thought it was worth us talking a little bit about impact, a little bit about satisfaction, and a little bit about performance measures. So in terms of impact, you'll see towards the end of the report that we've identified the number of jobs within the portfolio and the value of those jobs, which indicates to us that there is a value of our portfolio of just under £5 million a year. That's in terms of economic impact within those areas. We have 146 tenants, and those premises are spread across the county, both in terms of light industrial estates, regeneration schemes, and the business centres. We carry out an annual tenant survey, and you'll see towards the bottom of the second page of the report that we had just under 100 responses, so we're very pleased with that. And of those responses, the majority of the responses, when we asked about satisfaction, were in the 90 to 94% bracket. The only one that was a bit lower was satisfaction with communal and shared areas, and it was at 82%. So I don't want to be complacent. Clearly that one's lower than others, but 82% is not bad for satisfaction anyway. We will, however, carry out some actions to address that as part of our continued programme. You asked us to give some thought to the letting to charitable organisations, and as you'll see in the report, for those charities who are seeking a long-term let of an office, a unit or whatever, then we will of course treat them the same as we would any other small business employer. Many charities of course are registered as businesses as well as being charities in their own right. We do, however, have some occasions when charities approach us asking for use of, for example, a conference room for a day or something like that. And as you'll see in the report, we think it's important that the pyramid is essentially that existing tenants receive the first level of support. If there are other businesses needing those facilities, then we would offer them to them. But if we can accommodate, then we will accommodate charities for those short periods. We've also put in the report some figures around occupancy levels. So office occupancy sitting at, admittedly the lowest it has been for a while at 73%, but we have had 16 new tenancy agreements either agreed or in process since Christmas. So we're seeing a fair amount of churn, and having people leave the facilities, particularly the business centres, isn't always a problem. Often the people who leave are moving into bigger facilities, they're moving into places where they are generating more employment, but it does mean that we then have to manage occupancy levels and budgets. You'll remember from our previous meetings that we've got a long-term ambition to reduce the cost of the portfolio to the council, but at the moment I can confirm we have an operating budget of £494,000 a year and that we're on target to hit that. That includes recognising that drop in tenancy, and it includes recognising some of the investments we're needing to make to address the issues in the employer survey. Very final point I'd make is that it's really important to recognise something which Simon's introduced over the past 12 to 18 months, which is that our tenants are not just simply with us on a commercial basis. So we've started to organise a series of workshops, often delivered by other tenants, on AI, on accountancy, on things like on marketing and so on, and those are seeming to be very successful. So in terms of outcome, as I say, just under £5 million is what we think the job impact is. In terms of performance, we are a little bit lower than normal on office space, but I'm not too concerned about that. Typically, we're not in a bad place, and we have 146 tenants. And then in terms of satisfaction, as you've seen in the report, sitting between sort of 90 and 94% in terms of tenant satisfaction. So I'll leave it there, Chairman.
Thank you, Justin. Do we have any speakers?
Councillor Dyer first, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And pretty difficult to be negative about the tenant satisfaction survey. That's a fantastic result, and it's, I think, it was a good response rate. Was it upwards of 60-odd% response rate from the tenants? So it's statistically significant as well. Just looking at that, 90% satisfaction rating, that's fantastic. It's lowest in the communal areas, but still, as you said, Justin, that's still upwards of 80-odd%. My question is, just on that, are there any trends regarding which communal areas? So, for instance, Eventus had the investment a few years ago. Is it higher there? Is it lower there? Are there any centres where communal areas are showing to be a problem? But by problem, I mean it's not a significant problem, but a problem. There's a few, Chairman, but I'd appreciate a response to that one first. Thank you.
Go on, Justin.
So I think it's more about common themes, really. So it's things like keeping the toilet space in decent condition. It's things like improving the meeting rooms. So we have been putting better IT into the facilities because businesses wanted that. As soon as you start building something, you create disruption, and that causes a difficulty. It's a bit of a trend around that. Interestingly, we've been asked for some no smoking signs and a bit of managing where people go for a smoke and things like that. So I couldn't say it's one location, but there are 2 or 3 themes that are coming through. We are currently on site or just finished at Oak House in Lincoln and Hoddings Way down in Long Sutton, where we've had to improve parking facilities and some of the external facades so that the businesses in those facilities can be proud of the facilities.
Thank you, Justin. Do you want to? Yeah.
Thank you for that, and thank you. I was just wanting to know if there's a trend in a particular centre, but clearly that's not an issue. One of the, within the report, I don't know where it is, I noted it down here, it was highlighted that communication of updates affecting tenants was highlighted as a bit of a concern from tenants. I think that in response to that, I think you've mentioned that more regular updates are going out to the tenants. My question is, though, is that some of the issues that came from Lincolnshire County Council, some of the things that were said potentially in this room regarding the workspaces, is that what businesses were concerned about, or was it other updates that were concerning them?
So I'll I'll ask Simon to be clearer on this one, but when some concerns were raised to me about comments which were taken in this chamber, I asked the team to let me know if ever anyone raised those concerns as a tenant so that we could deal with them. I wanted to monitor it, and I didn't actually have anybody raise a concern. So I don't think it was that, but anything particularly, Simon?
Thank you, Justin. No, I don't think so. I mean, if you're referring to the previous comments made by the committee about disposals, then we did have some feedback.
Disposals.
Yeah, with two community groups, one in particular who was very concerned about the future of their centre. I have met that community group in person to allay their fears. I've got a follow-up meeting with them later on in the summer to talk about how they might want to secure their long-term future. So no, to answer your question, Councillor Dyer, I don't think so. I think it's more generic sort of operational things. Justin's already given you a really good example, which I was ready to quote about improving signage for smoking areas and just sort of that day-to-day tenant relationship is the main thing that the portfolio officers deal with and things like that.
Thank you. Do you want to...
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for that. Just also within the report, and you may have mentioned it, it may be the smoking signs and the car parking, maintenance was highlighted as an issue somewhere within the report. Is that the sort of maintenance that's already been mentioned that were problems, or is there any other maintenance issues outstanding? And perhaps I'm not paying enough attention. That probably is the answer. Where are the office spaces, do they now fall under the LCC's corporate landlord, or are you still directly responsible for maintenance issues?
So, just a reminder again, we've got industrial units, we've got business centres, and we've got regeneration schemes, and they're all at different stages of life. So, for example, in the industrial units, we quite often have to do fire security and legionnaires and things like that. So there's little bits of maintenance which come out of those sorts of reviews. We have got a corporate landlord arrangement now. There are some things which absolutely we run through corporate landlord. Sometimes we have an immediate problem that needs solving there and then, and we will solve it there and then. We had a classic example 3 or 4 years ago, which is still within the arrangements of central heating in a facility which failed on something like the 22nd of December, and it was about -3 degrees outside. And the guy to my right drove around lots of hire companies to try and get some heaters just so that we can deliver it. Sometimes we just have to be pragmatic, but fundamentally we are within corporate landlord service, and that works well for us.
One more?
There's not many more, don't worry, Chairman. In previous committees, it had been mentioned by Councillor Kelly that the centres were going to wash their faces. I think we've heard that phrase several times. My question on that is that still the objective of the council for the centres to wash their faces?
So there is a long-term objective to reduce costs, and that's partly about reducing operating costs, it's partly about increasing income. One of the things that we discussed as part of the debate you're describing is that outcome, satisfaction, intervention in market failure and so on are all other considerations as well. So hence why we talk about that as a long-term ambition.
Thank you for that, Chairman. And then just in respect to that, there was an ongoing discussion regarding the energy and how energy is recharged, potential issues with night charging of energy, businesses using energy that they weren't paying for. I think that was all within the same discussion. So where are we with that? Is the council now in a position where all tenants are paying for all the energy that they're using?
all tenants are paying for the energy or other use as set out in their lease. Some leases have been running for 5 or 6 years and have still got 2 or 3 years to go and so on. So we are looking at, and we've got all manner of databases and whatnot sitting behind this, identifying where individual tenants are not paying the same as other tenants within the building. We're looking to equalise that as far as possible. I didn't mean as far as possible. We're looking to equalise that, full stop.
Thank you for that, Chairman. And I think, again, this is from memory, it was around about, give or take, about 100 grand, wasn't it, that it was costing the authority for this problem with the recharging of energy. At the end of the last financial year, where were we? Was that less than 100 grand? Was it at 100 grand? Was it more than 100 grand? But then at the end of this financial year, where do we expect that figure to end up?
So we don't see it as a cost. It's part of the team's budget. And we are expecting that the amount of money that is paid by tenants for electricity costs to have increased. We're hoping that will give us a bit of extra headroom to be able to invest in some of the things that the tenants have asked us to do. But there's the small matter of inflation and energy costs affecting all of that. So we are monitoring it, but I'd really encourage you to recognise that working in a market failure and working with a budget means that we will always, or we will be investing in this portfolio into the long term. We are, I can give you my assurance, looking to get that to zero, but it will be in the long term, and in the meantime getting some income up, some costs down, and trying to equalise things like the energy costs are part of the plan.
Thank you for that, Chairman. I appreciate that the executive member who made those commitments is no longer in post and the current isn't in the chamber. But I just want to press again, if I'm able to. It was a £100,000 figure that was quoted by Councillor Kelly. You've said that will be lower, but how much lower? Are we talking a grand lower, 10 grand lower? Just a ballpark. I won't hold you to it. Just how much lower are we expecting that to be?
I'll remember the I won't hold you to it bit. 20-ish.
Is that 20-ish pence, 20-ish pounds, 20 grand?
20-ish thousand pounds. And now I've learned that if I press my button at the same time as yours, I'll remember that.
Thank you, Chairman. And I appreciate I've gone on a little bit. My final question, and I think you're probably expecting this, within the office spaces, we have the performance indicator target that, I don't agree with. I don't like that. And you're probably expecting my question, can you provide the percentage occupancy rates here to committee for all of the office spaces, so Mercury House, Eventus, etc., etc.? Is that something that you could provide to committee?
They will be in the narrative of the quarterly performance indicator reports, which will be introduced shortly.
Could you provide them to committee now, please? The reason for that question is within the report, within the narrative, there's mention of Mercury House. We all know the history with Mercury House and the problems there with that centre. I'd just be interested to know what is the occupancy rate at Mercury House. And I think, for instance, with the Fez, within the report as well, I know a couple of years ago numbers were building up at the Fez. There's been a success at the Fez where, is it a tenant vacated several office spaces, which is good news, but where does that leave the occupancy rate at the Fez, is what I'm getting at.
So we've put a process in place to collect the information in time to put into the quarterly reports. So we would have to go and carry out extra work, which I'd be reluctant to do in the summer holiday period, given that the next Scrutiny Committee in mid-September will be a place where we can provide the information because the process is in place. And that's why Simon and I have got slightly furrowed brows going, what's the exact number? Because we haven't got the exact number to hand today. But crudely speaking, Mercury House is at about 75% at the moment. The hub building at the Whole Beach Fairs, still around about 50. We were going up, but as you say, we had tenant move out. And you'll see in the report, about on the 6th page of the report, there's some helpful information about what we're doing to try and increase tenancy numbers, particularly through working with different agents.
Thank you, Chairman. My final point, you'll be pleased to know, it's just that this is, whilst I appreciate there are performance indicators fed into that and you've committed within the narrative, there's going to be that information provided. All I would say on that is that this is the annual performance report for the commercial portfolio. So I think it's only fair that members, if they're asked a question on the performance of the portfolio within that year, you should be able to provide a simple question such as, what is the occupancy? I think that is quite a simple question to ask. I'm not asking a breakdown of sectors within the centres. I'm purely asking for the occupancy. And I think perhaps officers may be being slightly difficult, I think, in response to that question. Whereas I suspect, knowing Simon as I do, I suspect he actually knows the answers to them, all of those questions off the top of his head. But I'll leave it at that unless officers wish to provide that information.
Well, if you can provide that information and send it via email.
Okay,
Is that okay?
Yeah, fine.
Thank you very much. Councillor Condell, please.
Sorry, thank you very much for the report. Slightly sideways track on this and relating to what we were talking about in the previous item. Is there any way that we can encourage our tenants to participate in work experience?
Definitely we can promote, and in fact we do many of our services to them, and because those tenants have a good relationship with the council, then I would hope it's easier to promote to them. Many of the tenants are small and have all of those challenges that we discussed an hour ago though, but absolutely happy for us to build that into the programme of events that we've introduced.
Thank you. I think that might be worthwhile.
Councillor Daesh, please.
Yes, thank you for the report. Just coming at this at a different angle. When you've got tenants that leave, is there a room, especially in industrial, is there a backup of people that want to apply to go into those spaces?
There is, yeah, particularly in industrial, and certainly we've got waiting lists in various areas, and that's not the bit that concerns me. It is the business centre bit that is more, that fluctuates more. And we all work differently now, don't we? We work from home and things. So there are some challenges around that, but as we say, we're comfortable. Simon's just whispered that in terms of work experience, he's got a specific example of one of our tenants that he's promoted and done some work experience. So I don't know, Chairman, if you'd find it useful to know that.
Yeah, go on.
Thanks, Justin. Yeah, just on that point, what I just wanted to give some colour to the work that my team do. And very much working with...
Sorry, Chairman, people online won't be able to hear you if you don't speak into the mic.
Right, yeah, okay, thank you, Councillor. I'm getting animated again about my subject, apologies. I just wanted to give some colour to the work that my team do, really. Working with Lee's team, we've just had a very successful event at Mercury House where we engaged with the local secondary school and we invited school leavers to come in to learn about career opportunities, that including apprenticeships. And I wasn't able to attend myself, but colleagues who ran the event said that many of the tenants were particularly engaged. The event was particularly successful, so much so that we were looking to hold a follow-up event or another event in the south of the county to sort of build on that relationship working with schools. So again, an example of the really good relationships that we've got working, linking into the previous paper actually.
Yeah, fantastic. Do we have another speaker?
Councillor Corey?
Thank you. Thank you. On the point that Justin made, I think it was in response to a question by Councillor Condell, and he said that the industrial units, when we get some voids, we've got a list of people who would quite like to occupy those voids. In the business units, it's less so because of the change in the way people are working, that you can work remotely from home. Is that a permanent market shift? And how are we responding to that? And if this is not something that is unique to Lincolnshire, so what's happening elsewhere, and how are we responding and preparing for that?
So he's desperate to jump in. So I'll ask Simon to build out on that. But I suspect it's permanent, but we're monitoring the situation. And if a number of you will have been to our business centre in Market Deeping, Aventus, and we did actually reconfigure the interior of that business centre to try and capture some of the impact of people working from home. So we created more drop-in working space. We created a couple of little individual hubs where people can sit and do video calls and things like that. And yeah, it seems to be working. It's not setting the world alight, but it does seem to be working. Bigger trends are monitored by the RICS, I can't remember what it stands for. Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, of whom we have the East Midlands lead.
Thank you for that promotion, Justin. Yeah, I think Justin's already given the example that I would have given you, Councillor Corey, actually. Aventus is the classic example where historically we've always had a waiting list. That's always been our biggest, most popular centre. It is our biggest, and it's always been our most popular centre. And I think I've explained my thoughts on why that is to this committee before, very much based on its location, able to pick up businesses from the sort of the greater Peterborough area in particular. We did see some sort of fluctuation post-COVID, but I would say in terms of demand at Aventus in particular, we've gone back to that pre-COVID world where we do have a waiting list and we do monitor that. But really just to reinforce what Justin said, we do monitor and we keep a waiting list for all inquiries, and we obviously try and match them up to vacant properties as they come about. I would say it's a fairly similar picture, subject to that sort of topsy-turvy world post-COVID. We've gone back to how it was before that, I would say.
And just a little supplement, thank you for that. A little supplementary to that, because we are one council currently, and we don't have silos. We work across teams. How closely does your team work with library service? As we know, libraries have little business hubs, little rentable spaces. So what kind of relationship do we have with the team that runs the libraries and GLL? Thank you.
It's a very good relationship. We have they're part of our directorate, so we all collaborate at senior management level, and we ensure that we cross promote. And yeah, I think really the little hubs within the town centre libraries and the units that we have in our business centres are complementary, but not really targeting the same market, so it's not really a problem to us. But yeah, you know, Samantha and I find ourselves in lots of meetings with the assistant director and head of service, and all of that. That seems to work okay. I don't think there's a missed opportunity, which is what I guess you're exploring.
Yeah, also missed opportunity, and are we offering complementary services? It sounds like we are, so thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more speakers?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Justin, £494,000 net council contribution. Are you happy with that figure? Do you think that's worth paying that amount of money, taking that taxpayer money and using that for the social value in which it creates?
Yes. £5 million a year in terms of metrics, a presence across the county. So yes, we've got business centres quite visible, but if you look at our light industrial units, we are providing employment opportunities across the county. And if you look at some of our regeneration schemes, they support the areas most at disadvantage. So yeah, I am. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And something Councillor Dyer mentioned earlier about the energy costs. How many of the buildings, the business buildings, the business hubs, have solar panels on their roofs? How much are we using? Obviously, some of them are very big. We might as well, put solar panels on them.
I have to confirm that back, but I would suggest it's either 3 or 4 out of the 6. We've got a big array at Gainsborough. Definitely got them on the hub in Hull Beach. We think we've got them on the roof at Oak House. We've got them on the roof at Wyvern, haven't we?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So.
And is that one of the reasons why the £20,000? Is that one of the reasons why? Because of the generation of.
It is one of the reasons. Yes, we've been able to sweat some extra income as a result of them on Wyvern House, which is on Tentacroft Street in the city centre here.
Perfect, thank you.
If we have no more speakers, then I will move to the proposal. I move that the committee receives the report and asks that our comments and feedback be cascaded across relevant teams. Can I ask that you raise your hand if you agree? It's unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on to item 10, the Growth Scrutiny Committee Work Programme. This is the last item on today's agenda, and the report can be found on pages 89 to 94. The actions required are members are invited to comment on the content of the committee's work programme. The report will be presented by Chiara Hatsioanu, the Health Scrutiny Officer. Over to you, Chiara.
Thank you, Chairman, and hello, members. The work programme for this committee is a live document, as you know. It grows and evolves from meeting to meeting based on the suggestions and the comments raised at each scrutiny committee meeting. Therefore, I do encourage you to seek to advise us, either today or offline, of items and themes that you would like to see being presented in future months. Previously, on this last iteration of the work programme that was published alongside the agenda for this meeting, we have the full agendas for the future meetings that are described from pages 89 to 94. There has been one change that I have been made aware in relation to the work programme, to a certain work programme item, and that has been since the publication of this agenda. And this is that the Sleaford demolition paper is now being removed from the work programme for a re-evaluation of the timeline. So it's no longer coming to the 20th of October committee meeting, but I will be in position to advise of new arrangements very soon, hopefully. If there's anything else that you would like to raise, please do, by all means now. Otherwise, you know how to reach me to have those discussions offline at your convenience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer.
Thank you very much, Chairman. All I'd like to add to that is that earlier in the meeting, Councillor Baxter mentioned the Grantham High Street audit report that I think, Chiara, you mentioned was going to audit committee in, you didn't mention that, sorry, Michelle mentioned that, in September. Can I formally request, Chairman, that that report comes to this committee as well at a date that would be acceptable, if that request is acceptable? Thank you.
Thank you.
I can come back on that. Can I please clarify whether you would like for this item to be introduced into the work programme for scrutiny purposes or just for information and circulation as to avoid duplication of efforts that are placed elsewhere, namely the Audit Committee?
It would be for scrutiny, but there is precedent where double scrutiny has occurred at this council before, and I think there's a fair argument that it would occur again here, given the discussions that we've had on that in the last 6-7 months or so.
I am definitely happy to take your views on that, and I will get back to you with an answer in relation to this in due course. Thank you.
There's no more speakers then. We'll move to the proposal. I move that we receive the report and approve the existing work programme as detailed on pages 89 to 94. Can I ask you raise your hand if you agree? It's unanimous. Thank you. And that brings an end to the meeting. Thank you all for coming.